Thank you. Can we start to move over here this end, other than the city council's already been announced, start this end?
I, Rhonda Cargill, Chief Clerk to the Board of Supervisors. Roll call, Chairman Rodriguez.
Here.
Supervisor Frazier.
Here.
Supervisor Rogers.
Present.
And absent is Supervisor Poitras and Supervisor Wheeler. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
Orderly clerk.
He's hard to forget.
City of Chowchilla, Stacy Weaver, Deputy City Clerk.
Yeah, and just do roll call every council.
Roll call of council. Mayor
Comments?
Gomez. Here. Councilmember Wasim Ahmed.
Here.
Councilmember Dennis Hayward.
Here.
Absent
Right there again.
Ray Berrigan and John Chavez.
Very good. Thank you, everybody else who's here. Welcome. It's going to be a good meeting. At this time, we'll have invocation for the Supervisor, Chief Rogers.
Sure. Let's all stand, please. What a beautiful morning, great weather, good time to approach the one who made it all. Heavenly Father, we just thank you for this opportunity together as friends, community members, governmental leaders, and citizens. We thank you for the blessings that you poured out on our community over and over again. We're mindful of all the good and perfect gifts that come from you. And we thank you for them. This is the day that you've made, and we will rejoice and we'll be glad in it. We ask that your blessings be upon us in our deliberations, our goals. We pray that we might be mindful of those that we represent, to lift them up, to be a rising tide that lifts all ships, both small and great. We ask that you might help us to think also of the wisdom that you would impart and not lean upon our own understanding. We ask for those young men and women who are on foreign fields of battle today that you might bless them and encourage them. We thank you for our country. We thank you for those especially who are defending it, those that have been wounded, and those who have given the ultimate price for our freedom. We ask that our flag may be raised on high and stand as a beacon of hope for the world to see, and that it may long wave as that symbol of freedom. We thank you for all these gifts and for these blessings that as you impart to them, and impart them to us, and we thank you for this day in Jesus' name. Amen.
Will you all please join me in saluting our flag? Ready? Salute.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome and thank you for being here for our first hopefully many intergovernmental agency workshops. I want to thank the Intergovernmental Agency Committee that has made our workshop today possible. This committee is composed of Gary Savada, Melissa De Silva, Elisa Madera, Matthew Schubert, Eric Fleming, Eddie Gonzalez, and Rhonda Cargill. Thank you guys for good job. At this time, I'm going to ask the mayors of the city of Madera and the city of Chowchilla if they want to make some comments.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and also on behalf of the City of Madera, thank you to the committee for putting this together. I think this is absolutely wonderful that we can come together as the two cities in the county and be transparent. I think the foundation of any successful government is transparency. And so for those in the audience that are also joining us from the community, as well as the 3 other entities. Thank you so very much for joining us. We look forward to some wonderful input, and as you said, Mr. Chairman, one of many meetings to come. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's a hard act to follow, but I also agree with what Andy said, and I just hope that we can create a partnership, like a triangle. The counties here, City of Madera, City of Chowchilla, all our constituents are in the middle. And that's what we're here for, is all of you. So I look forward to cooperative collaboration and some really good, output. No garbage in, garbage out. We're going to have good in and good out. We want some good results. So thank you all for coming.
Very good. Thank you for those wonderful comments from our leadership. Welcome to everyone here this morning. My goodness, this has far exceeded our expectations with the number of people that are joining us this morning. The idea of this meeting came out of a planning session that our board and all of our departmental heads hold each year, and it was one of the top 5 priorities for our Board of Supervisors. The idea was to develop better working relationships with our other local elected groups. So our committee was formed and charged with planning a process to draw together multi-jurisdictional groups and making something that we could depend on having cooperation going forward. And it included this workshop where the city of Madera and the city of Chowchilla would sit down with our board and see if we couldn't find the areas of mutual concern. We hope that the workshop will set the framework and foundation for ongoing communication, breaking barriers, and allowing us not only to speak to our fellow electeds, but to listen and to communicate with and to the people that we serve with one united voice. I've had the good fortune of being involved in 3 of our workshops, and they have all been organized and put together with the help of Mr. William Bill Chowchilla. Give you a little idea of Bill's background. Bill Chowchilla is the Dean of the California State Association of Counties, we call it CSAC, Institute for Excellence in County Government. He's also the president of Alta Mesa Group, LLC. His expertise spans over 40 years in local and state governments. He served as the county executive officer of Napa County, and he was the director of organizational effectiveness for Santa Barbara County, along with executive positions in city and special district governments. At the state level, he served as executive director of the Arizona Governor's Office for Excellence in Government and served on the cabinet. He has been executive director of the California Association of Local Agency Formation Commissions, we call LAFCO. Bill provides organizational development, effective development, and facilitation services for local governments throughout the West. He is an instructor in the UC Berkeley Goldman School of Public Policy and Executive Programs. Bill has a BS from the University of Minnesota and an MS from the University of Michigan. And he is a graduate of the Senior Executives in State and Local Government Programs from the Kennedy School of Government at Harvard University. Bill works to expand leadership capacity and capabilities of those in public service so that we may better serve the communities and advance the goals of our individual agencies. There's a good reason why there's so many executive director and leadership
things attached to Bill's name, it's because he is very, very good at what he does. So please help me in giving a Madera County welcome to our facilitator this morning, Mr. Bill Chowchilla.
Before Bill speaks, I just wanted to ask, is there any public comment?
Yes. Good morning.
Morning.
My name is April Molina, and I live in Madera County, right off of Raymond Road. My husband, children, and I have lived in our home for 18 years. The location of my neighborhood is no more than 1 block from the city limits of Madera. I would like to tell you all some things that are happening where I live. Where I live, my children have seen things that no child should ever see. They've seen young girls get picked up and dropped off right across the street from our driveway. They've seen drunk drivers topple signs, power lines, fences, and other cars. They've seen drug deal after drug deal. My kids were the only witnesses to a shooting right outside our house. We had a detective in our home at 10:30 at night asking them questions. They were 14 and 9 at the time. All of that pales in comparison to the things that we have seen and experienced with the homeless population that comes traipsing across our property. Some are harmless vagabonds that move along eventually, but the majority are violent. The majority are addicted to narcotics, alcohol, and sex. Let me ask you some questions. Have you ever had a woman come up to you in your home and ask you for a place to hide? Because I have. Have you ever had a man come up to your door with his pants undone, exposing himself, and asked if you've seen the prostitute that stole his money? Because I have. Have you ever chased 5 75-pound pit bulls off your property with a 12 gauge? Because I have. Have you ever witnessed a woman aggressively proposition a man with a wedding band on just trying to get gas in his work truck at the 76 station? Because I have. Have you ever seen cloud of smoke after cloud of smoke and prayed that it is not your home or your neighbor's home? Because I have. The river is always on fire. Have you ever witnessed a man walking through traffic, pointing his fingers at cars and pretending to shoot them? Because I have. Have you ever watched a man beat another man with a hammer? My neighbor has. And in fact, that same neighbor is so angry and fed up that she can't even bring herself to come to our neighborhood watch meeting. She's disgusted with the sheriff's department and the county supervisors, and she says that my being here is a waste of my time. My neighbors and I have had our very first neighborhood watch meeting this last Monday. I learned that I'm not the only one getting knocks on the door in the middle of the night from someone looking for drugs or a ride to Sacramento. I found out from my neighbors that they have a great disappointment and frustration with the sheriff's department. What happens is when we've called them to come out, it takes so long for them to get there that whatever was going on is done and gone. And after a while, you get discouraged and you just stop calling. We've become callous to the crime around us. This is creating a wedge of mistrust between patron and law enforcement. And this wedge needs to be mended. I spent about 2 hours talking to Chief Civil Deputy Michael Knotts and found out that the Sheriff's Department is just as frustrated as we are. They can come out and arrest someone, but the laws are so lenient that they are back in less than 2 hours and nothing has changed. So today, when this topic is brought up again, I've come with 7 solutions, but they told me I only had 3 minutes. So I will be back up. Thank you.
Thank you for reading the law. Anybody else that wants to speak?
Mr. Chairman, I know it's not on the agenda. While she's coming up, I just wanted to point out, I think it's something that's worthy to note for the press and everybody that's here, that this event was paid for, I believe, exclusively by electeds. So you need to understand that. We don't want any misunderstanding. Some people, I've heard some complaining about us having a meeting at Madera Golf Course, and the golf and all of that is paid for by electeds. So we thank you for your participation, all those who have contributed to this meeting today.
Thank you, Supervisor.
Good morning. My name is Joanna Torres, and I am with Madera Votes, and we would like to be civically engaged and encourage more of our community to be civically engaged with a lot of the issues that affect our communities and our family, neighbors, and friends here in Madera County. So I just wanted to share my concern regarding the potential privatization of the water for the county of Madera. We have been speaking with a lot of the residents of Madera County. It is a concern. I hope that there will be opportunities to allow the community to participate when it is after work hours. A lot of the times, a lot of these meetings are during work hours. A lot of our community members do work. So I would like to ask that is an option in the near future. A lot of people are concerned about the water privatization potential issue that may come up. So again, I'm Joanna Torres with Madera Votes, and we would like to encourage more community members to be civically engaged. So we will be attending a lot more meetings and watching them when they're available online. So thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
We'll give you an opportunity to speak after each item is discussed. Bill.
Thank you, Gary. Good morning.
Good morning.
And thank you for inviting me to be part of your conversation today. My role is to help you actually talk to each other. This is a bit unusual in California to have a joint meeting of the cities and the county. It rarely happens around the state. And I believe this is the first time that you've ever had a joint meeting. Yes, you've all been in the same room together, but that's different than sitting together and actually listening to each other and listening to the ideas and hearing each other. And that's our conversation today. You'll notice on the agenda we have three things we're going to try to address. A chance for you to talk a little bit about how each of you sees the future of the county, not the county as the organization, but the county as all the people that live within the boundaries of Madera County. What do you see as some of the opportunities where the city and the cities and the county can work together? And what might be some things we could start with? Where could we start to do this? In California, but by the way, there was a birthday earlier this month. You know what it was? It was on September 9th. It was the 167th anniversary of California as a state. And I'll explain to you in a moment why this is important. And I apologize to people at the back. I'll try to move around a lot. But this was in San Jose from 1849 until 1850, where they were developing the Constitution. And California is organized differently than other states, which is why it is difficult oftentimes for cities and counties to work together. It's not because cities and counties can't work together, it's because structurally, when we created our Constitution 167 years ago, we made it deliberately difficult. And so for you to come together today is a big step, and it doesn't happen very often around the state. So just a little bit of background, and I'll turn this around so people can see it in a moment. But the Constitution of California created cities and counties. And the Constitution with respect to local government is only 3 pages long. And as thick as our Constitution is, it speaks very little to local government. And I didn't mean for one to be bigger than the other, but it created counties as subdivisions of the state. Counties are subdivisions of the state. This is unlike other states in California. Cities are independent entities. Cities are independent entities. Cities are incorporated, they're independent. Counties are subdivisions of the state. So this is why, and what California decided to do was to delegate to counties all state services. So for those of you who lived in other states, you might have found, for example, as Gary mentioned, I worked in Arizona, counties don't do health and human services. The state's there. The state provides those services. I came from Minnesota, same thing. In California, the counties end up spending the bulk of their time and energy, about 80 to 85% of their budget, and time is on these countywide services that serve everybody in the county, but are essentially delegations from the state. So that's behavioral health, and so some of these are relevant to our conversation that our public speakers brought up about things like water and homelessness and some of these kinds of things. Social services, animal control, all sorts of things that essentially were delegated to the counties, and they do those things. Cities are created as independent entities. They're incorporated. I think Chowchilla was, 1923, and Madera was 1907, that were incorporated as separate entities. And so and then in wisdom is the state also said, by the way, counties, you can do municipal services in the unincorporated areas. So you get to be essentially the city services for those who don't live in a city. So everybody in Madera County, regardless of whether they live in a city or not, gets all these delegated things that the counties do. Cities provide services like this for the people who live in the city, and then the counties are supposed to provide all the other services like roads and water and all sorts of other things for the people who live outside of the city. So you get this web, and it becomes all interrelated, but yet there's no connection between all of you. There's no requirements that cities talk to counties, and you can see that when counties do roads, nearby cities, it affects them. When cities do something at the edge of the county, or at the edge of their boundary into the county, it affects them. So our system, it makes it difficult for that cooperative act. So for us to have that opportunity to have this conversation today is important. I think there are some things that are driving it because this is starting to happen more frequently. Some are, and I talked to a number of you prior to today, are problems that are emerging, such as we heard from our public comment, that no one's in charge of. There's nobody that state has designated as in charge of homelessness. It's a problem, and all of us have to figure this out. Since the recession earlier in this decade, every city and every county in California downsized in some way, shape, or another. And none of us expect that we're ever going to have the same number of staff today or tomorrow that we had in the early 2000s. And so how do we figure out how do we do things? And finally, most people don't understand the difference between city and county and where the boundaries are and who does what. And so it's up to us to figure it out. So I wanted you to begin by, we'll maybe just go down the table. As you're thinking about Madera County, and I think many of you are thinking about this while you're driving here today or for the last few weeks, where do you see Madera County? Again, not necessarily just your city or the county, but if we were to have a crystal ball and look ahead 20 years to 2037, what would be some of your hopes and dreams for this community? What would be some of your hopes and dreams for this community? I know, I'm going to start over here because I know, Mary, you've been thinking about this a little bit. So maybe just a couple minutes for each so we get everybody a chance. And this is also a chance that we're not voting on anything today, we're not making any decisions today. This is about just starting to hear each other and hear where each of you are thinking and where there's similarities, where there's some differences, and how can we work together in that. So, Mayor.
Well, thank you for starting with me. I'm just right at the moment really caught up in the systemic problems that we're all facing and how we can collectively come together, and we have to come together. You said there was a disconnect between the three of us, and there is a disconnect. At least as Mayor of Chowchilla, I feel a disconnect. That being said, I have not reached out to Max, and I told Andy that I was going to come and talk to him about his wonderful neighborhood watch program that he has started in the city of Madera. And have I done that? No, I haven't. That is my fault. But we are seeing more and more of what the young lady, April had talked about the homelessness and the drug problem, the gangs. I just had a citizen call me last night about a car stopping and asking her, and I beg your pardon if this offends anyone, I have no idea what this means, if she was a chap, and apparently it's some kind of gang member. She said, no, I'm not. I'm not. I don't know what that is. I'm not. And they were out with baseball bats. I know she called the Chowchilla PD, but right at the moment, that is where my heart is we need to come together collectively to find solutions to the systemic problems, because it's not just Chowchilla and it's not just Madera. It's all of us.
It's the community.
It's the community.
Yeah.
And that's a perfect word, because we should be a community. The three entities should be a community. I love coming to Madera. I hope that the people of Madera love to come to Chowchilla, to the fair, to the stampede, all of those things. But eventually, no one's going to want to go to either place, because we can't come to a solution or find solutions for these systemic problems.
So part of your vision over this next, probably not 20 years, but even shorter term, is how do we address some
And it's
of
going to take years.
these very difficult and complex problems that don't have any easily identified
No easy solutions.
Yeah, okay.
Yes.
Good,
Thank you.
thanks. Mayor?
Thank you very much, Bill. And
Plan.
Mayor from Chowchilla is absolutely right. In my experience, not only as mayor, but as my 6 years on council, I'm finding that there's issue after issue. And so as I reach out to either my staff or to my colleagues, what we affectionately refer to as across the street, I'm finding that a lot of elected officials and staff have already heard about it from that particular person. And so maybe 8 or 10 people have heard of an issue, and you have 8 or 10 people going off in 8 different directions. And so as we continue to work together and speak together, I think we can come together collectively and come to a solution quicker. In the city, we've made strides in that direction. We've had vision meetings where we bring in our own staff and different department heads to see how we can help each other. And that includes the county. They have resources, and when we talk about homelessness, there is no one solution, and there is no one entity or body that would have those solutions. So as we work together as elected officials on LAFO, our Economic Development, Transportation Commission, we need to continue that dialogue on how we could collectively use those resources and sit at the table and come to some sort of answer. Where I see Madera in the next 20 years, and one of our assets, I think, is land. I think being in the Central Valley, being on the 99 corridor, and we have a lot of dirt in Madera County. That the cost-value relationship is definitely on the positive side. And so again, as we work together to collectively reach out to those companies with the high-paying jobs, reach out to those companies that can employ 50, 100, 200 people, use 99 as that corridor to go up and down the state. I think in the next 20 years, you will see the Avenue 12 corridor look nothing like what it looks right now. Our Freeway 99 from Avenue 7 all the way up into 152, that is some very, very prime land in the middle of the state that could be turned into something very, very positive. Again, as we sit down as the two cities in the county, I think we can work with not only Caltrans, but other companies looking to find their new home, so to speak, here in the Central Valley. So I see also the 41 corridor as being a very viable piece of property that can be look nothing like what it looks right now.
So kind of using our collective resources for some of this, figuring out how do we want this thing to look, what can we bring in here, whether it's in the city or in the county, it's how do we make this all work together?
And benefits the entire county.
Right. Because none of us have the individual resources by ourselves to do all this.
Bill, we're going down the table.
I'm going down the table.
Sorry, David, you have to wait. You notice you started over here on purpose. We only have 3 hours.
We're out of time.
So, I'll keep it somewhat brief. I have a unique perspective from this, having had the pleasure of serving on the city council as well as the county, and I just thought there was, basically the county is just like the city council or the county, and they're vastly different. There's different things you have to do. It always seems that there is more engagement at the state through the county level, and when you're in the local level, you always hear superior form of governments, and that's just, it's offensive, when you're, because I didn't see any difference in terms of the level of government or class of person and staff or the elected body. And so getting rid of that superior government thing kind of, I think, helps me. And I know when I look at the state legislature, I definitely don't think they're a superior government to us either. But, when we, I think this comes down to a lot of trust, because I did have a lot of relationships at the city. Sometimes it made it easier to go over, and hopefully they were able to trust me that what I was going to say was the right thing. I think when this all comes down to it, it's based on communication and trust. If we can trust each other and communicate on a level playing field, we're never going to get anywhere with each other. And so I think this is the opening to that. I think this is going to hopefully serve as the platform for where we start to go together over the next 20 years, instead of separately serving the same people, duplicating services when they don't need to be. Everyone talks about not having enough money, and if we're duplicating services at all 3 different entities, well, then we'll never have enough money. So when you look at, a lot of times we'll say, well, they're in the city of Madera, and they're in the city of Chowchilla, and then the last time I checked, within a map, the city of Madera and the city of Chowchilla are in Madera County. So we're not separate people. The people that live in the city of Madera live in the county of Madera. They're our constituents as well, and we have to treat it like that and pull together where we can. I don't think that, our answer in government is always, well, we don't have enough money. And I'm going to keep coming back to that. We don't have enough money. Well, that's not fair to the people. That's not what they put us here to just give them an excuse about not having money or the resources. We have to figure out how do we do it with the either human capital that we have, or political capital, or AFC. I won't say what the F stands for, but actual cash. So we have to be better for our constituencies and pull together those resources that we can. I'm very bullish on Madera County. I think that right now we're moving forward. The cities are moving forward with great amounts of vigor. We're bringing in new jobs. This is the last real place in California that is underdeveloped, that has the ability to set itself apart. And we have a unique opportunity right now that we have a blank slate, right? A blank canvas that we can, everything that everybody did wrong in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, and 2000s, in terms of building, not putting in the right infrastructure, not putting in the funding streams to keep up that infrastructure, we can do that right now. And so if we don't take this opportunity to do it right and do it together, we're going to miss the boat, and we're going to end up getting what we've always gotten and having the exact same problems that everybody else in the state has had. So I want to see, in the 41 corridor develop greatly, along with the city of Madera, with the city of Chowchilla, help them grow, not try and win for some past transgression that happened because somebody sued somebody and, or, you know, we didn't get enough on a tax sharing agreement and, or this person was let go from here and they came over here to exact revenge on the other entity, that needs to go away. Because that's not fair to our constituencies. And we're not gonna be the best that we can be if we keep on harboring those ancient feelings. I hope that in some point, our only rivalries are whose high school football team is going to win this Friday. So, I mean, go Hawks. And I'm a Coyote too, so I can go with the Coyotes.
So a couple of things similar to the two mayors, a bit of a palette, and how can we work together to paint that. Brett also talked about building trust, and that his sense of building trust begins with just having conversations with each other and understanding where we're coming from. Brett also mentioned something as well, is being forward-looking, and that's kind of the challenge for elected officials, council members and board members, is you have to have a bit of bifocal glasses, looking through the bottom lens on the things we need to deal with today. We've heard several of those that need to be dealt with today. But as Brett said, you also make decisions that will be affecting generations yet unborn. And now is the opportunity to be thinking that longer term about lessons learned about decisions that were made by your predecessors 30 years ago or 40 years ago that now you are dealing with. How do we think about, and that's why I'm starting your thinking about what do you see Madera County looking like in 2037, because every decision you make as a council member, as a board member, will affect that decision. And there's a wonderful aside by a woman by the name of Mary Peters, who some of you may recognize. I worked with Mary when she was Deputy Director of the Arizona Department of Transportation, affectionately known as ADOT. And then she became the Director. But part of our conversation today, I think she captured in something she called the confetti trail. She talked about, I'll turn this around a second, that in every organization, the two cities, the county, all the staff, people are making decisions. You're making decisions as a council member, your managers, as administrators are making decisions, your department heads are making decisions based on what they think your wishes are. And if there's not a shared idea of what those are, and this is I think what Brett is talking about, those decisions go in whatever we see in the short term we need to do. And so as Mary pointed out, it becomes sort of this confetti trail of decisions moving us in all directions. I think what you're doing today is the beginning, and this is the two mayors that I talked about this, of identifying something that we can collectively see together. Now, individually, as I mentioned before, you all have your own individual stuff you got to deal with. Board's got to deal with all the health and human service stuff, and ag commissioner stuff, and all that kind of stuff. Council's got to deal with water and sewer and all their things. But there are things that collectively we can do. And what Mary talked about is if you as mayors and council members and board members know what those are, and your managers and administrators know what those are, and department heads know what those are, you begin moving the organization and the community in that direction. And that seems like it's the conversation we're having. Mary Peters, a great story, started as a clerk in the Arizona Department of Transportation, and she ended up as Secretary of Transportation in the Bush administration. And she's now back in Phoenix. But I think her insight was exactly what Brett was talking about. So, Washington?
Thank you. Just pretty much add to the same thing what previous mayors have mentioned and Brad has mentioned too. We need a little bit of better communication, a little bit more work on cooperative issues. Like what I have seen before I came on the council was like, well, county doing their own thing, cities doing their own thing, nobody really knows what they're doing. But, you know, the whole idea was to kind of work together as a team. The people coming from outside, they don't see any different. They don't see city of Madera, they don't see the city of Chowchilla. They see as the county, as the community. And how we can build the community, you know. To me, it's like it's everybody's issue, homeless or economic development. When it came down to like a recent example like high-speed rail, counties working on their own planning and cities are working on their own planning, which we should have been working as a cooperative, working with everybody, with the farming community, with the cities and with the counties, because they are all members of our community. And I think we missed the boat a little bit on that, but we started off a little late on it. But comparing to some of the other communities like Fresno and stuff, they have take the lead on us when it comes down to those kind of issues. And I think we can work a little bit more closely on those things, like also like a tax sharing. It took like 2 years between City of Madera and County of Madera to just come to an agreement, some kind of understanding, because we need to see how we can work together and after all the benefit of the community as a whole, not like just as a city, just because it's my city and I'm just looking after my city. Like sphere of influence issues. I mean, sometimes we're looking at economic development, they're going across boundaries, one city to another city. Well, this is not my problem. Well, it's not your problem, but it's a community problem.
Right.
So, medical marijuana, like some of these hot issues are coming up. We need to work together on those kind of things. And I think this is one of the, step on the right direction that we are moving. And I want to applaud everybody for, putting this together and at least we're moving forward on this. Thank you.
Thank you. Will?
I think a lot of my comments have already been shared, but certainly we have to start by seeing before doing, and we have to understand what each other does on a day-to-day basis and what our service delivery is. Economic development is vital for any city or any county or any community. I think that shared cohesion and vision there is very important. We do so through the auspices of our Madera County EDC, but I think that we can do much more as far as planning infrastructure development, leveraging economic development tools that are available to cities and to counties and making sure that we have coordination in going after those efforts. But as we do grow, as we do expand and take advantage of the land canvas that we have, whether it be in the county, in the wide areas, or in the cities, I think it's also important that we look at those future, perhaps unanticipated consequences, such as housing availability and affordability. And I think that there are things like that that we should begin taking steps to look forward and to address and look at, whether it be water, whether it be affordable housing. So I appreciate this discussion. I think it should serve a first among many, and I think it hopefully will translate and percolate to our staffs as well. I think that is vital that we as an organization, not just elected officials and community members that we represent, buy into this philosophy. And I can say that we've seen successes, even with our city tax sharing agreement. There are elements in there that go beyond land use and who's winning, who's losing, but just inherently go down to just good public policy making and good public service, whether it was extending police services to the Parkwood community or working with the city of Madera on achieving their economic development objectives. I think there's a lot of good examples we could draw from. Today is going to cement those and I think put us on a path moving forward to continue to escalate that conversation. So thank you for your participation as well.
And so Will's also suggesting, keep looking for those kinds of opportunities where the cities, county can partner on things that they may need to do anyway. And how can we expand the great example of tax sharing agreement? How can we expand that to cover more than just money, but more, working together and finding opportunities to share resources?
One thing that Supervisor Frazier and I, as well as Mayor Madela, have talked about is we're going to need another tax sharing agreement eventually, right? In the future.
Right. This one's only 5 years, right?
So why 3 years actually?
3 years. Okay.
So let's not wait.
It took just as long as getting signed as be implemented.
So let's start that process tomorrow.
Yeah.
Begin on that and we're building market also thinking right.
Right. Well, and Will's being up a great point is that's part of of the dilemma the state has left us is that cities and counties having to battle for little bits of resources because, the state takes most of the money, so.
Yep.
But there are a number of jurisdictions across California that are similar to what Madera is doing, is using that tax sharing agreement as an opportunity to sit down together and put things in that agreement that are more than just money. But there may be opportunities to share staff, to share other kinds of resources. And we don't have to do this all by ourselves because even collectively, there's not enough money between the city, 2 cities in the county to do everything we want to do.
Yeah.
So how can we best leverage it to avoid a duplication of services or doing things that actually move us in the wrong direction? And you're right also in what Will said is that the council and the board have to model the way. If you expect staff to move in that direction, they're not going to move in that direction unless the councils and the board are modeling the way for them. So thank you for sharing that, Max.
Going back to 08, when the recession hit, we had approximately 1,700 employees in the county. We're down to 1,100, maybe a little bit more than that. And the board of supervisors, we get criticized quite a bit, but people don't realize the administration and what they have done. And I'll name my name, Eric. He's done a fabulous job to doing what he's doing with that many less workers. And the workers, you have to give them credit too because they have done a fabulous job. They're taking up the slack, doing what has to be done. And for a long time, we couldn't give raises because we didn't have it, folks. We didn't have it. But we've climbed out of that hole little by little, and I think we've done well. We have young people working for the county. I'll take, for instance, example, IT. We search for talent within the organization, and we promote people that can do the job. And with the new systems, computer systems, we're doing the job that with less workers. Now, I think we're doing well. We have a very diversified board, as you know, but I think we get, in the final analysis, many of our votes are 5-0 because it's clear what we have to do, what we have to vote for the good of the county. Now, going back many years, the county and the cities, we didn't really get along. Maybe we didn't keep in touch, but it's getting better now. And I see where you have a lot of young people coming on board, and they have a different attitude. And our attitude has also changed on the board. We get along better. It's maybe because we associate with each other a little bit more. And as far as what I see for Madera County, I think it's going to be great. I'm a champion of high-speed rail. I do see that being built. It's going to be built. And it's going to be subsidized? Probably yes. And it's very expensive? Yes. But the point is, it's a system that's been proven all over the world. And it's getting built here. You're going to see people moving from the Bay Area because they can't afford to live up there, moving down to the Central Valley. And within 2 hours, hour and a half, they can be in the Bay Area or they're doing their jobs. And they're going to be living in this area here. Homes that cost $1.2 million in San Francisco and that area up there, you can buy them here probably for about $400,000. Now we're talking about professional people that make good money, but they still can't afford to live in the Bay Area. Many of these people, hopefully, they'll move down here. These are educated people. These are people that have different ideas. They'll promote and do things down here, and hopefully they'll run for office also. They'll bring the ideas from the urban areas down here, and I see nothing but good things happening for the Central Valley. I'm proud to be from the Central Valley, and it's going to get better, folks. It's going to be better. Another point that I like to bring up is jobs. We started with the county, we started initiating a task force going after some of these companies that want to relocate. Yeah. And you pick up the Fresno V, you see Visalia, Fresno, Merced, never Madera. So we initiated different programs to try to contact these companies and let them know what we have here in Madera County and the city, Chowchilla, and the city of Madera, so that perhaps they'll give us a thought about relocating here. We need jobs here. Folks, as I travel to the city of Madera, I see a lot of people that can't take care of themselves. young kids that don't work, they don't know what a job is. We have to provide jobs for these people so that they don't do things that they shouldn't be doing. Our crime rate is, I would say it's increasing because of people that can't take care of themselves. You know, we have a huge problem. Homeless is a big problem also. But I think upon analysis, I think we're going to be better. 10, 15, 20 years, we're going to be proud of what we're happening over there.
So, kind of picking up on some themes that you've heard. One is working together on that palette that would create some jobs that might generate additional resources for the cities in the county to do some things, as well as part of your vision is how do we take advantage of the potential of housing people who are going to be able to travel further to work because of high-speed rail.
You bet.
And how do we prepare for that? Because it'll probably happen whether you prepare for it or not.
Yeah. And then like, I'll repeat myself, and you have young people, this guy's here, you've got the mayor.
I'm young.
I mean, they come up, neighborhood watch, you know.
Yes.
They have one almost every other day. Sometimes it gets to be kind of a pain in it. But anyway, a lot of people that get together, meet each other, get to know each other, especially the Latino community, because they're not used to that.
Yeah.
They're not used to that. So we have meetings out there, we get 5 or 6 people out there. But as we go forward, you're getting more and more and more. And they tell us about, like the ladies have the problem that are having some of the neighborhoods, you know. So we're working on it.
It's also, as Brett said, it's about building trust with the community as well.
You bet. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Dennis.
I'm going to keep it short, and I apologize up front. There's a whole lot of politicians up here, including myself, and one thing we love to hear more than anything is our own voice. I'm going to try and be short. Some of the issues. One, I have a unique perspective, just like everyone up here. I was a deputy with the Madera County Sheriff's Department for a number of years as a county employee. What I noticed was line staff does a really, really good job of working together. And when I left the Sheriff's Department and went to work in Merced, I noticed that in that county we're a little more siloed. Mental health didn't work with the police departments, the sheriff's departments, as well as we do. That is a strength we have here. A lot of it comes from we're not a wealthy county. We're not wealthy cities. So we have to stretch every dollar we got. When you're working on the street, you're working with the community, you don't obstruct each other. You help each other get the job done. And that's one of our core strengths. We, as the elected leadership of our community, of our county, need to emulate that. And that's where we have failed. I've been on the council in Chowchilla since 2008. The majority of the time that I interact with my peers up here is on various boards. And Wasim, you're on LAPCO?
Yes.
So he's interacting with Board of Supervisor members, Madera City Council members on LAPCO. I'm on the Community Action Partnership Board of Directors. That's where I interact with the majority of these folks. And that's where we failed. So I want to thank the county and everyone who brought today together. This is exactly what we need. And I want to thank our staff for actually showing leadership on that level, and you've been doing it forever, so thank you. One of the areas that hasn't been covered, but it is being covered, is a lot of the groundwater sustainability that's going on, getting on the same page with the counties and the cities. Part of it is making sure that when the city of Chowchilla, the city of Madera, the county is changing wiring regulations or any of those types of things, we're all on the same page, so it doesn't create confusion within the community. What are you doing? Why are you doing it? We're all on the same page and we have the same ideas and we're putting forth the same restrictions or controls. It's easier for the public because we're all saying the same thing, so the message gets out there to everyone. It drops the confusion and brings awareness up. I like nuts and bolts types of things, so I'm not going to talk about grand visions. I'm going to talk about very specific things I'd love to see happening over the next few years. 99 becoming 3-lane, that's huge. We keep having accidents involving trucks at 99 and 152. We had one this past weekend. It is increasing. I've never seen it this way. When I was a volunteer firefighter, we used to go out there every now and then for car accidents and stuff, but I don't remember being this bad. And what it is you have a 3-lane in Merced County, you have a 3-lane in Fresno County. We're the choke point. And we need to get behind that because it's affecting the city, it's affecting the county. This is a major issue. This is a nuts and bolts thing. It needs to be addressed. We had Caltrans at our council meeting a year or two ago, and I asked them about it, and they said, we have no plans at this time to expand Highway 99 to a 3-lane. And this was in context of fixing our overpass on Robinson Boulevard, which blew my mind and everyone in the room. The member of Caltrans, I can't remember his name, I drop it because he's out at saying stupid things. We asked him, why don't you have any plans? And he said, well, because there's no congestion on 99. Apparently he hasn't set the parking lot. Those are the things we need to get on together, because it really does affect all of us. 152 and for us, 152 and 99, the economic development of that area. We need to have we have a good plan. Our city staff have put together a lot of good planning, a lot of good marketing for the area that is annexed into the city for our use. What we need to do is get with the county a lot better at marketing that whole area and coming up with a larger plan for that entire area. The other side of that is also 152 and Robinson Boulevard, the economic development, because right now it's not within the city, but within 30 years, 40 years from now, that's probably going to be annexed within the city. So if we're not coming up with a plan now for the future and for the vision of that, we're going to have problems. And we need to head that off. And then high-speed rail. Max and I are a great example of this, and I've said the same thing to Jim Costa when we sit in my office. I don't have to agree that high-speed rail is a good thing or a bad thing to sit down with people and negotiate the best for my city and my community for the impacts involving high-speed rail. The city of Chowchilla has taken a very hard line. We've been involved in litigation with high-speed rail. We are, as a body, not as individuals, but as a body, highly opposed to high-speed rail, and we've done everything we can to push it as far out from our city as possible. That does not mean that Max and I can't sit down and talk about the impacts and how we mitigate and how we do it. I don't have to. My vision for the future would be high-speed rail dies a death today. I want it to go on. That's my personal opinion. And I know, Max, you like high-speed rail, and that's fine. And we can have a civil and intelligent conversation with each other, and we can work out a strategy that mitigates the impacts of high-speed rail in his constituency, my constituency, and does the best thing, whether it's built or not. Right. So we have a lot of ground that we just need to get off our butts and do the job. Max is kind of, like Jimmy Cricket. We don't agree on a lot of things, but we like each other, so it's a good thing.
Well, and part of what I'm hearing Dennis say too is, as cities, as individual elected officials, as a board, we may take a position of one thing or another, but once the decision is made, whether we agreed with it or not, is how do we then take advantage and work collaboratively for the benefit of the people of Madera?
Well, it's even further than that. We need to look at the bigger picture. We're going to continue fighting unless the council decides to vote differently. We're going to continue to fight high-speed rail every day. We're going to work with their staff, but we are working with them to get everything we possibly can out of them, and that means if we can push them into Merced County, we'll do it. But that does not mean that we're stupid enough to sit there and not take advantage of the position that we're in to get various concessions if high-speed rail were to happen.
Perfect.
Yeah. And that's what we need to make sure is, I don't like high-speed rail, Max likes it. We need to set that aside and work for what's best for our constituency. And I know, Max, we've talked about it. We're on the same page on that. We just need to take that spirit into a much larger.
Apply it to some other things as well. Where there may be disagreements, but how can we then still work together and respect our disagreements?
We have a slogan, if it's building, get the best view from Madera County.
There we go.
For the benefit of the audience, that was what a politician considers short.
Appreciate it, Bill. Thank you. You'll have to apologize for my voice. I'm trying to get over something that my 2-year-old brought home. This year is something redundant. Many of my colleagues have already echoed the sentiments that I'm feeling as well. I'm excited for today. I'm honored to be a part of something that's never been done in our county before, something that isn't done often within the state. And I think we can build off opportunities like today. It was mentioned earlier, wins and losses, and in fear of being associated with our White House, I want to talk about winning, but in a different manner. The only winners and losers are actually the people that we represent. There's nobody that's sitting up here that's gaining anything when we're not working together, when we're not coexisting, if you will. Government isn't exactly today's most celebrated agency, and I think that we're trying to sort of swim upstream when a lot of ideas and concepts about what government does is sort of pushing downstream. And so we have a chance to do something that isn't being done, as you mentioned, within California. So when you look at the land canvas that we have within Madera County, when you look at the opportunities that we have to leverage our EDC and working together with joint agencies, utilizing agencies, sharing resources, being a cohesive voice when we go into Sacramento, when we go into Washington, D.C. These are things that are going to be built because of this morning, because of today. There's a quote that I love that says, "Lonely is the one who builds walls instead of bridges." And we're going to need to work with each other because there's so many uncertainties in today's municipal issues, if you will. I mean, water's huge. We had a great rain season this last year, but we don't know if that's going to happen again this year. We don't know if it's going to happen for the next 5 years. I'm glad that Dennis brought up one because I think that that's going to be something that the three agencies are going to have to continue to work together when we start talking, even pulling in farm bureaus, even pulling in some of the private entities that we're seeing at LAFCO and that we're seeing throughout the county. These are things that we're going to have to talk about. Being able to work together with our schools, being able to bring in agencies like Madera Unified, Chowchilla Union, and ensuring that the future of our cities are being educated to the place that, because we're going to see that huge influx of baby boomers that are going to start to retire. And now all of a sudden we're asking for people to fill these jobs, but they're being trained for jobs that aren't even created yet. I mean, our children are being educated for jobs that they're going to have careers that haven't even been created yet. And so these are all, great opportunities, but I think the one thing that I hope, and I agree with Max, that we live in a great place. We live in a great place. And my hope is that Madera is the county, since this is something that you don't see often, Bill, throughout the state. We have an opportunity to lead by the example. Let's be different. Let's quit looking at what other cities are doing. How can we be more like them? Look at what Fresno did. Look at what Clovis did. Every email I get automatically compares us to one of the 5th largest cities in the state. And as much as I would love to be able to operate with the budget Fresno has, I don't have that. And so I want to do something different. I don't want people to ever look at Madera and say, why can't we be more like them? I want people to look at Madera and say, why can't we be more like that? And if we're going to say here today that we're going to cooperate and work together, tri-agencies coming together to ensure that our county and the people that live within it have the best opportunities possible, then let's continue to lead by examples and not our mistakes. So that's it.
Thank you, Charles. And both Charles and Dennis said something powerful too, and others have said as well, as being together when you go to Sacramento or when you go to Caltrans, that doesn't happen very often. Even when I was in Arizona, rarely did the cities and the county and their cities come together at something. But when you're together, you make an impression. When you walk into an office in Sacramento, and even though people know the city and county may not agree, but they're together on this issue, that's powerful. That's powerful. Jose?
Thank you, Joe. Appreciate you putting this team together. I think it's a great opportunity for our agencies to be together and collaborate, feedback in regards to the topics that have been brought before us, our elected officials. But yeah, I'm probably one of the newest elected officials here. I'm not sure if that's the case, but from when I was here on the table, it looks like I am. As a business owner, I started wanting to inquire of what would it take to help our community. I'm not going to be biased here, but I was referring to the city of Madera and how we can grow economically. So I then decided to talk to some community leaders, and that's how I got to the school board. So as an elected official in the school board, the perception that was out there was that our agencies don't work together. Our agencies typically fight. Our agencies don't ever want to do things for each other. So this is a good opportunity for us to come to the table and actually recognize that there is issues out there that we can work on, collaborate on. And, unfortunately, I wasn't able to stay on the school board. I'm on the city council, so it's a great thing. I'm not campaigning for the future, but if I did, who knows, maybe 20 years from now, in 2037, I'll be seen among these peers here and being able to advocate for the community of Madera, County of Madera. But one of the things that I do bring into play is that as the state of Madera does continue to expand its sphere of influence, we have to take in mind that every single agency or local government has its own general plan. How do we merge those plans together? How do we look for future? We don't know where we're going to be in 20 years, but we do see outlooks that we might be expanding north, south. And when we do, are we looking at our general plan and their general plan? Do they correlate with each other? And it's when we have to annex certain unincorporated areas that we bring into the city. Now we have to provide services. Now, let's go back 30, 40 years back, was the county and city thinking like this. That essentially these areas were going to be incorporated at some point or another. So, this is exactly what I think we can do moving forward. So this is something we bring to the table today, whether it be Chowchilla, whether it be Madera City or the county. We have these bordering lines that we share. And at that time, I think it's an important conversation to have to bring together these communities and entities to be able to bring something positive. The other thing that was brought to the table earlier was high-speed rail. Obviously, and I'm sorry to say this here, Charles, but I don't want to compare us to Fresno. No, that's not the issue. But I understand that because of this development, Fresno is receiving a lot of money to help develop some other areas, freeways, roads, what have you. So not working together, I think we did miss the boat. And we missed the boat in many other opportunities. And I'm not going to try to bring back past. I'm trying to bring, what's the vision of it? You said 2037. This is where we can really impact our community by really allowing the economic growth. So with that, I'm very thankful that we're all here. Again, I'm very glad to hear the comments and the feedback from all my colleagues here. I hope that we can make something positive this year in the future.
Yeah.
Thank you, Bill. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Jose. So learning from the past, but like driving a car, looking through the windshield towards the future, not trying to drive your car by looking in the rearview mirror.
Right.
Okay. Cece.
Good morning, Bill. I truly feel honored to be here at this table with everyone, and honored that we have all these wonderful people that decide to spend their Saturday with us and without pay. It's a volunteer to come out this morning. So thank you for being out here today. I truly believe that we are put here in this position to lead our community to a great future and to have a vision. And like my colleague, Councilman Rodriguez said about the high-speed rail, I feel we haven't missed the boat yet because we're still in the running for that maintenance facility. Now, I know the city of Madera, the county, Chowchilla, and Madera Unified put on a great presentation to start it, but I haven't really seen much of a push since. And I think tonight or this morning would be a great opportunity to really look at that and push for that facility to be brought to Madera, because that's great revenue that will be coming to us. And we talk about bringing more things into Madera, as in jobs. We need housing. I see great housing that needs to come here. That would be a good start because revenue is important. I agree with my colleagues about looking at other cities and what they've done, but we have to remember that we are Madera. We're going to do what we do best. It's a great place to live. More people are going to want to come. We're 2 hours from the beach. We're 2 hours from Yosemite. We're 2 hours from a theme park. We are like in the middle. We're like a great secret of the state of California that nobody knows about. And when everybody finds out, everybody's going to move here. I truly love it, and I think that we have a great product of residents in Madera County that are going to do some movements. We have a morale going that's so positive in our city and in our county right now. It's the best I've seen, and I've been born and raised here. So I'm honored to be here this morning with all of you and my colleagues here that are voted officials, and I know that we're going to do what everyone out here needs us to get things done to make our city grow and the county to be strong. So thank you.
I think she did a great job of introducing who we are. And I think that's very important to know who we are. First of all, I chose to be here. I chose to live in this community. I could have lived anywhere. I started in Orange County, moved out of state for a little while, decided I don't like out of state, I'm coming back to California, and I landed right here. I landed here because I love it here. I had friends here for many, many years. But anyway, who we are is really important. And let's just talk about a few positives. We're the fastest growing ag economy in the United States for the last 3 years. That's amazing. And that means the world. We're #1 in manufacturing jobs for the last 7 years. Job creation is manufacturing. That's big. That's in the United States. That probably means the world. We're the #9 largest ag production economy in the United States. That means probably the world. We're number 49 of Forbes' best places to do business. We've achieved that over the last 8 years. That's amazing. That's an amazing figure in the United States to be number 49 out of 50 states and thousands of cities and counties. Amazing. 60% of our land is open spaces. We're in the Williamson Act. That doesn't even include land outside of the Williamson Act. That's land in the Williamson Act. So we have a lot of open space. We're one of the last places where you can pioneer in California. This is a pioneer county, a place where you can build something and dream to build something. We're the gateway of the crown jewel of national parks, Yosemite. Thousands and millions of tourists come through our county every year to see Yosemite. We have a wine trail. We have all of the good things that you want to have in a community. We could talk about the bad things too. Yes, they're there. But they're there everywhere. And they're in every community. And we've got to identify those problems and deal with them and push them out or solve them, find ways to solve them. But knowing all these good things about us, we're in a marriage.
Right.
We're in a marriage where divorce is not an option. I'm talking about the cities and counties. We're in a marriage. And if we treat it like a marriage, we don't communicate, we're not going to have much of a marriage, are we? I mean, my wife and I were an hour and a half apart this entire week, and the only way I could talk to her was on the phone. This morning we got up at 5 o'clock and we talked till I had to leave at 8 o'clock. So that was kind of nice to talk to my wife. And that's why we have a 36-year marriage. But we want to have much of a marriage if we don't talk. Now, with that in mind, excellence is never an accident. Aristotle said that. Excellence is never an accident. And I would say that it is planned for and intelligently achieved. Today is a step towards excellence for us as county and a city and cities. So what do I envision? Let me just show you what I see. Safe, healthy communities. And we could define that, what that means, but I'll let you, I know that we all have a similar thought about that. Lush open spaces, and I'd love to see water flowing through all of it, because that's important to us. Without water's life. Clean corridors, thriving ag economy, and a diversified economy. Tourism. And let me just close my thoughts by saying, fixing a messed up world begins by fixing a messed up man in a family that he decides, I'm going to change and fix that messed up family that fixes the community, the city, the county, the state, the country, and the world that he lives in. So it begins with us individually, where we go. One person can make a difference. April, I appreciate you coming up and saying what you had to say. I know it's hard to talk about those things. It's negative, it's not fun, it's like vomit, and you got to clean it up. But if you're going to fix the problems, you've got to address those problems that are right at our doorstep. I think the problem with Washington, D.C., and the problem with most government today is that they've forgotten the doorstep of the citizens that they represent. They They don't identify with what's going on at the doorstep of their citizens. You talked about your doorstep. That's reality, folks. With all the good things, there are the bad, and that's why we're here today, to address how we can make it better. It's got to be a good marriage. Thank you.
Thanks, David. Well, and you raise a good point. For city council members and board members, you're the only layer, really, of government, and not one superior than the other, that the community interacts with. I mean, you rarely see your state assembly member or senator, and you certainly don't see your congressperson or senator very often. But you're really it. And so when people like the public today and other times come before your council or board with their issues, or when they see you in the grocery store or at the gym, I mean, you're it. You're government to them, because that's all they get to interact with. So paying attention to them and being that model for them is what we can do. We can't control what happens in Sacramento, let alone Washington, but you can control here. I'll share a thought before we take a break after we hear from our two other council members, kind of building on David. But Donald.
All you gotta do is shove it in. But you know, I was listening to him talk about water is life. I have a different profile about that. Our children are our life. You know, when I hear somebody tell me that we have to call the sheriff department when the city police is right across the street, but they can't go across that line because it's out of their jurisdiction. As a county, every part of this is our jurisdiction. We shouldn't have those kind of avenues in the way when it comes to somebody's life or need help. You know, when I sit around and go from place to place and look at a lot of things going on in our cities and counties, if we went to a baseball game and all these officials showed up, do you think they'd be watching the baseball game? Of course, that's what they went for. But when we go to another meeting or something to where we go to a kid's outing or a school board or something, we're not talking about what's going on at the school board or at the kid's outing. We're talking politics. I've seen this so many times over the years, I don't think it never changed. But it always have bothered me when we invite a guest to there and you come with something on your mind. And we're talking about intergovernment, so I'm not off track yet. If we're going to be on intergovernment when we go somewhere, we should be concerned about why we're there at that particular part. We're making rules and regulations for everybody in the city and the county. But we can go somewhere and our mind is not there on what we're going to make rules and regulations on. If we're going to come together, then we need to start deciding what we're coming together to do. I like this. I like the first. I've always said we need to sit at the table. We should also have the school board here, sit at the same table, because that also has a value point on what we talk about. But all our leaders and elected officials should be sat down together, at least every quarter, to talk about different things. I know this is the first step, and I've been on the planning commission for the city and county over 20 years, and I've never seen this happen before. To see it happen today almost brought tears to my eyes. I didn't want to come at first because I didn't think it was going to amount to nothing. But it won't amount to nothing if I stay at home. So I decided to come out and listen to everybody's elaborate speech, and I thank you for bringing this together, because this is what we needed 20 years ago. Maybe 20 years ago we'd be farther up the road, we would have these odds and inputs of what we need to talk about today. But we bring it today, but now 20 years ago, ain't none of us going to be here. You're looking down 20 years down the road, and half of us ain't going to be here. So what are we setting the precedent for our young generation? And our young generation needs to know what we're talking about today, so they can take leadership tomorrow. We don't invite them to our school board meetings. We don't invite them to our, we got a lot of kids in high school that need to be listening to something like this, to talk about student government. When I was going to school, we had civic classes. We went to places like this to hear what goes on. We need to get back to that. We need to start training our kids today on what leadership is going to be like tomorrow, because they're going to be the leaders of our future. But nobody has thought about that yet. So So with this, as we come out of this, we only talk about city and county. We need to talk about tomorrow. We're here today for ourselves, but how are we going to pass it on generation to generation? So as we do this, I hope somebody come up with that great idea to start inviting schools to our meetings. And this lady was talking about having county meetings at night. You should alternate, because there is people that can't come during the day. And there is people that can't come during the night. So we need to try to figure out how we can help everybody to get on board with what we're talking about. Thank you.
Thank you, Donald. Brent?
I'm actually the city attorney, so I'm going to defer.
Wow, attorney didn't want to say anything. I think I have all the elected officials, right?
Yes.
Okay. So one last comment, and then we'll take a quick break. And when we come back, start looking at what all of you are saying are what are some opportunities. If we start building some of this trust, what might be some things that we could start working together on? Has anybody read the book, Thank You for Being Late? It might be something to put on your holiday or winter reading list. It's written by Thomas Friedman. It came out at the end of last year. You're wondering why I'm addressing it. So Thomas Friedman is he wrote The Earth is Flat, a number of books. He's a Pulitzer Prize-winning author and journalist with the New York Times. But what I found interesting about his book, there's a lot of stuff in there you could ignore, but what I found interesting in his book is something that was a bit of the tenor of everybody that spoke today, and I think all of us feel, is that the world around us is changing in many, many difficult ways. That there's an anxiety of turning on the news at any given time about what happened in the last hour, and that it feels out of our control. And he talks about exponential growth, and I think there's a lot of merit to what he's saying. But one of the points he made is that the place where change can be addressed, and there's an acronym that the military used in the late 90s that you're seeing more and more in our descriptions of the world around us, VUCA, V-U-C-A, volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. I think that's a great explanation, a great term describing the world we live in, volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. That those problems aren't going to get solved in Washington, as you pointed out. They're not going to get solved in Sacramento. What he talks about is that at the community level, local government, cities and counties, he uses some examples from Minnesota, which is another reason I like his book. Using examples in local communities where the communities have come together to try to address complex issues of homelessness, immigration, all sorts of things that we're facing that aren't going to get solved somewhere else. And he talks about the difference between pluralistic and pluralism. And if you ever take out a dollar bill, you'll notice the motto of the United States is e pluribus unum, out of the many the one. And he talks about a lot of our organizations are pluralistic. They look like this, that it's okay to coexist. And that's kind of Madera County before today. We started coexisting. We knew the county was across the street, and occasionally we went there if we had to, but if we could ignore it, so much the better. His point is that doesn't work. That just all being in the same room together, and I think, Donald, you were speaking to it, doesn't accomplish anything. It's pluralism is when you take advantage of the richness of all of it, the richness of all 13 elected officials here, all 17 in the county that sit on all the councils and the board, along with all the folks behind me that are your staff, and all the members of the community that none of us know individually what the right answers are. But if we work together, we probably can come up with some things that are going to look more like this, where we take advantage of everything. Because individually, these layers and dressing taste terrible. Right. But collectively, they taste pretty good. And if we don't keep paying attention to it, it begins to separate out really quickly. And that's why collaborations like this take work. But the benefits can be enormous to the community. And as several of you said, to the people that you serve, who really don't differentiate between whether you're a council member, a board member, you're a local elected official, or a school board member, a trustee. You're a local elected official. So you can sit here for an hour and a half. So let's take a quick 10-minute break. And when we come back, let's start talking about what might be some things that we could identify that we could start working towards collectively. So it's 25 after. Can we come back in 10 minutes at 25 11? They're back, so we're starting. So here's the next steps. One, for the folks back out there, this is, in addition to being the rare opportunity for the cities and the county to sit at the same table together, it's important for everybody to also understand that even within the board and the councils, you can't have these conversations, because they're not on the agenda. And on any given day when you have a council or board meeting, all you can talk about is what's on the agenda. So the opportunity for us to come together and think about the community as a whole, and to think about the future as a whole without having a specific thing you have to vote on is also rare. So I'm glad you're taking advantage. It's interesting and informative to hear your comments. We're going to take a few minutes now to talk about, now that we sort of set the groundwork, what would be some of the opportunities that we share interest in working together on. And I'm going to give you a few minutes to work on that, and then we will stop and, as Max said, we'll get a little bit of public input and some brief public input, and then and reaction to what you said, and then we'll end with what might be some very specific things we could work together on in the short term, like the next 6 to 12 months. What are some things we could work together on to see if this can work, and to actually have some success on something that the three jurisdictions can actually work together on and accomplish. It might not be big things, but sometimes the little things are more important to everybody than the big global changes. So I'm going to have you just work in where you are in 3 small groups for 10 minutes on, from what you've heard, and this will be convenient because 4 groups are mixed, from what you've heard, what you've thought about, what might be 3 areas that the county and the 2 cities could work collaboratively on. And we're not asking for something like in the next 6 months, but if there are 3 areas you would work towards that all 3 jurisdictions could agree on, what would those be? So let's see, I'm going to have 4 of you work together, and then from Will to
The rest don't matter.
Charles, and then Jose over to Don. So this is, and somebody write down what they are in your group, but take just 10 minutes, and then we'll hear from each of the groups, so everyone can hear what you talked about. But what would be 3 things? If you could narrow it down to 3 things that you think the county and Chowchilla and Madera City could work together on, what would those be?
All right, let's go.
There'll be a chance for brief public comment. So for those that are interested in commenting, and for those that can't see the flip chart, on the right on the flip chart is what they said. So that we have a record and then we'll put it up on the wall. And we hear from each group. So let's start over here. Oops, we have music.
Yeah.
Turn the music off.
Either that or you need to sing along.
Well, I don't know the song.
It's like, don't deactivate the whole system.
I'll say a different tune here.
Where'd they go?
I'll start it out for our group, and they can add to it as well. But, one of the things we talked about is public protection, especially dispatch, could be consolidated. And I know that our law enforcement agencies really work well together, and that's, CC mentioned the unprecedented cooperation we have interagency there. Another area that was mentioned that we need to collaborate on is high-speed rail and its impacts to the community and the benefits that can be gleaned from its presence. The other is water, and I think that's the first one we mentioned, but water, especially water recharge projects, storage, and interconnectivity for groundwater recharge delivery, and how that affects the cities in that it provides better water quality, will provide more opportunity for them to not pump water out of the ground, which is what we want to avoid if we can at all in delivering surface water. And the last one we talked about, CC brought up, was economic development. And naturally, if we're stronger together than we are separately, and we can do great things with developing all the good things that we already talked about, that we already are. But even more than that, we need to diversify our economy a little bit. And in that, like tourism would be a great one to focus in on a little bit. How do we capitalize on those 1.5 million visitors a year that come through Madera County, Helios, and what have you.
Thanks.
If my colleagues can jump in and help, we definitely need more time. We have a lot of great ideas. But we'll start with Highway 99. I think we agree that Highway 99 is of utmost importance. This is our economic artery throughout Madera County and joining our cities. So while we've been busy advocating, like at Madera County Transportation Commission, for the expansion of Highway 99, we felt that our three cities can do a better job working with our staffs to leverage that effort. Not only looking at important elements of that expansion, whether it be 12 or 17 or 17 north, but really, going all in to look at Caltrans to prioritize three lanes on both sides throughout Madera County, especially with additional resources coming down the pipeline. So we agreed that that is of utmost importance. Speaking with one voice, not only just with Caltrans, but as well as with high-speed rail, on mitigation measures concerning Highway 99, concerning future overpasses and things like that. That is an issue that we felt that we can also support, folks to the north and speak with one voice throughout the county. As far as homelessness, we spoke about this. We had two different perspectives from the city of Madera and the city of Chowchilla. The city of Chowchilla may not have experienced it to a great degree as we have in Madera and in surrounding areas. But they did speak to good examples where they've been able to bring in several different community agencies and partners to champion issues, not just related to homelessness, but other emergent issues in their community. So making sure that we have that coordination and cohesion between our service agencies, so between our police departments, our behavioral health, social services, and making sure that we kind of cement that. And then one about community revitalization. We talked about in the future, both our cities and the county, we're going to have a need for additional office space. We're going to have a need for new buildings. And so it's making sure that we prioritize locally, that if we are to put in new facilities, that we first and foremost look at our downtowns. We look at the aging parts of our cities or our community rather than the open green space that we might have, or greenfield that we might have out there. So we talked about that as far as a tool to in community revitalization, and making sure that that's a requirement too for state and federal agencies as well. So those are the quick points that I captured. Anything else you'd like to add?
Let me add, as far as the homeless problem that we have, and it is huge, I just want to say that I want to relay some information that's given to me by some of the people that live down on the river. We sent people down there to code enforcement, sheriff's department to clean the river. I was there one time not too long ago, and they cleaned about 50 feet. They brought out so much stuff in just 50 feet of river banks. You know, and as soon as we run them off, they come right back. But another, what they told me that is, and the police probably know about this, the sheriff department, what they're doing, they're getting organized down in the river. What they're doing, they're organizing into gangs under each bridge. Under each bridge, it's a separate segment of the population down there. There's women down there, they're doing all kinds of things with them, and even prostitutes go down there. But anyway, what it is they're organizing in each bridge, underneath the bridge, and I think the police department knows about this, but it's getting very, very serious, folks. Pretty soon somebody's going to get killed down there because awful things are happening down there. Thanks.
Yes, I'll start off for ours. We looked at three things, and we're looking at 99, 152, 99 from Fresno to Merced County lines, as well as 41 as our goods movement, which is going to be key to any economic development that we have, is how do we get our goods to market. From here, there's only so much you can do trading within your own area. You have to at some point send your products out to bring money back in. That's how your economy can actually grow versus just changing hands within the local community. So moving back to 6 lanes, continue to advocate through MCTC as well as through the state. The state's policies don't really help us. Everything is focused around greenhouse gas reduction and getting our air quality up. And even if we took every single mobile source out of the Central Valley, we still wouldn't meet our air quality requirements. That's, and they don't want to add any more capacity to any of the roads because they want high-speed rail or other more efficient modes of public transportation. So having to fight with us as one voice, saying, look, we need to have that capacity expansion to be able to get the food. In San Francisco, they want farm to table. Well, guess what? The farms are here, and we need to drag them out the road at some point to get to their table. We need to keep advocating for that. We looked at the why. That's the one thing that high-speed rail has promised to give Madera County, which is the largest impact along the entire line, is the why. And so we had started a group with Madera County, Madera City, the city of Chowchilla has been invited, came at the beginning, some communication broke down, USD was part of it, the Association of Realtors. But I think that came down to, again, we talked here, was trust that the county and the city of Madera have the city of Chowchilla's best interest in mind. And it probably, in their mind, it probably didn't. And so I think building that trust, that they can trust us enough to tell us exactly what it is they want and how we can help move that forward as a region. I think where we can really collaborate and build on that is, we don't have to go to high-speed rail as one group with one voice. We can go to high-speed rail and we have a built-in good cop, bad cop scenario, right? But we're on the same page. We're trying to get the best for every area in our shared jurisdictions. And we have a working relationship with high-speed rail, and we can sit at the table with our cousins from Chowchilla, and they can say, we want you to go away. And we're like, yeah, how can we help you to calm Chowchilla down, because they want your throat, right? It's good cop, bad cop. And we can get a lot out of them from that. So I think that's how we can work together. One group, not the same voice. I don't think that's a bad thing. But we just need to know that we're here to work together. As far as the homelessness, we talked about a task force within our public safety community, the different entities that we have. If what's happening when a camp is moved And all they have to do is push their carts across the street, and now they know they're out of the city of Madera, they're out of the city of Chowchilla, and now they're in the county. Well, if every time they are talked to, they're talked to by Madera, a city police officer, a Madera County deputy, and a Chowchilla city police officer, they know that there's nowhere they can go within Madera County, that they're not going to be stopped by those same people. So if we remove, for these, it's not crime, but for these issues that go across jurisdictional boundaries, if we remove those jurisdictional boundaries by coming together as a collective group, well then it takes that away from them. I don't know if that's, is there anything else?
Well, and Andy had talked about, in regards to homelessness, if we can collectively pool grants together.
Yeah. And figure out how to leverage resources to solve the problem, not just move it, right? Because it's sort of like a balloon. You squeeze it in one pot, and it just pops up somewhere else.
And this can become a model for other things that, meth is the problem that goes everywhere. And then they're talking to, really a unified front of our public safety officials. And, if you have 4 going around versus just 1 in the county trying to deal with this, I think it provides some weight to it.
Yeah. I'm not sure if you all saw it. There was a great 3 or 4 page article in the Chronicle, I think it was 2 weekends ago, on homelessness in rural California and the exponential growth of it. And what was interesting was it wasn't so much people from like Los Angeles or San Francisco here, it's homelessness happening here for people who are part of this community. So it was really interesting. But to the point that Brett's group was making, there is no one solution that's working. There's no one thing to point to and say, do it the XYZ way. It really is something that has to be solved at each community level. And, it's another great example of not letting, the jurisdictional boundaries get in the way because it just moves the problem. Any others?
We just had a great discussion last week. Dennis Cook's here and a number of other people that were in that discussion about homelessness. And we tried to pull in, we had Dave Revere there from the city of Chowchilla, and identify the fact that there are multifaceted reasons that people are homeless, and so the problem is widespread, and the solutions are going to be widespread.
Yep.
And you can't attack it with one solution, but let's attack what we can attack, and then try to rescue those that are rescuable,
Yep.
and then identify another way to deal with those that are remaining.
So let's.
Chairman, members of the board and council, I think the city managers and your county administrative officer also put together a little list, so maybe we want to hear theirs.
Oh, wow, you want to play?
We noticed you talking over.
Sorry.
I believe our priority items were covered by our board.
But what were they? Which ones?
Homelessness, I think we realize is one of our most critical issues right now. But at least from my perspective, I need to wait till it gets narrowed down and I follow their direction and go from there. So I don't know.
Were there other subject areas though that you talked about that resonated from what the members talked about?
How could we possibly follow a politically correct statement? We look to our policy bodies.
Right. So, Brian, what you're saying is yes, they're all correct.
Homelessness was something that the 3 of us talked about. We know that when Fresno cracks down, it comes to Madera. We know that when Madera cracks down, it'll come to Chowchilla. And so it's all about us working together. We do something in Chowchilla where we do, staff and I and a couple council members will meet in the evenings in a community area for like office hours. We call it community conversations. When we meet in the park, we've met with some of the homeless people. And discussions coming out is maybe we could employ some of the homeless who want to get
together and pull themselves up to help refurbish our parks, to help clean up our bathrooms, and things of that nature, because they want to utilize these services, but they want them clean as well. So how can we collectively work together on issues such as that? Another one is economic development, and in particular, the Enhanced Infrastructure Financing District. We know that this is a governmental body, a district that works very much like the way the old RDA did with tax increment financing, and it requires a cooperation of the three of the entities to work together. And yet the challenge in an EIFD is that the financing structure of a city and the financing structure of a county are very different. Counties are very focused on state revenues coming in for social services, with a small portion being general fund. Flip that over for cities. So when the city says, well, I want you to give a portion of your general fund, that ends up having more of an impact to the county because the general fund is so small to begin with, proportionately. So how can we move beyond that? Such as if we do an EIFD in an area of an industrial zone, maybe there's some shared services. Instead of dollars, might be a cooperative arrangement on with the sheriff's office on patrolling or fire or things of that nature. There's a way to do this. And a good example is the working between the city of Chowchilla and the county on Fairmead. Fairmead's a community in the county, in the city sphere. And I know the Chowchilla board recently approved a grant for monies that will sewer up Fairmead into Chowchilla's wastewater plant. And part of this will enhance the engineering of the plant to extend out its life. So Chowchilla benefits with a plant that's brought up to a more modern standard with longer life, and the county benefits because now we have a sewered up Fairmead. So there are examples of how this can be done, but there are challenges ahead. And of course, looking to my esteemed colleague to the left, we look to the policy body to give us direction.
I think looking at economic development, I think it's important to know, and it's all of us that are up here chose to run in a very public setting, put ourselves out there. So everybody here is very competitive, just by nature. Would I characterize that well for everybody, that we have to be somewhat competitive? So when we start looking at economic development, we all want to win that prize, right? We want it to be in Madera County and out in District 1 in the Brickyard. I want it to be out there. I want it to be on 41. They want it to be in Freedom Industrial, and Chowchilla wants it in that little area that they took all the way out, like a really weird shaped peninsula. That's a very nuanced. All the planners started laughing out there. But you know that our citizens don't care. I have people that live in the ranchos that work in Chowchilla. They don't know the difference. And I would rather it be in Chowchilla than Fresno. I'd rather it be in the city of Madera than Clovis. So we have to recognize that at the end of the day, it's still bringing in a benefit to the entire area, whether it gets cited in our jurisdiction or not. So I think it's powerful to site selectors if they're sitting there with the county administrator and the city administrator, a board member, city council member, planning from everybody, and say, just open the books and say, pick where you want to go. We want you here somewhere. I think would be something that we could work on.
I totally agree with my colleague on that. I made a phone call this last week to a man who owns the largest portion of the franchises for Sizzler in the state of California. And I've been talking to him for some time. But when he asked me where would be the best spot to locate economically for me right now in Madera County, and I had to be honest. I said the southeast corridor is the fastest growing place in Madera County. It's going to be your most beneficial location. And that's not in my district. I'd love to say Chowchilla. Well, by all means, Chowchilla. But I'm thinking of Madera County as a whole. And we benefit when we're honest about our circumstances and what we are. And I think we all benefit when we work for each other and try to help each other.
Now I know why we treated like a stepchild.
But I mean, that's, you know, again, to use Friedman's example, I mean, that's why this is so hard. Because you also have individual constituencies that elected all of you. And that you have to be responsive to them too. So it's figuring out how can I do both. And that's what makes collaboration so difficult.
Well, and on that note, this is one of the things, maybe I missed it. Did you bring up continuing what we're doing today going forward?
We're going to talk about that.
Well, that's in the future.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bill, another problem that we have with a byproduct of homelessness, squatters. These people, I can tell you for a fact that on East 5th Street, you have about 4 rentals. They're vacant, and you have people living in them. They break the window or whatever, and they come in and live in those homes. Some of these people even turn their power on their name. I have a friend that had a brand new house, in Parkwood, the new section, and she's that because she got a different job location. She's here, and she has squatters moving. And it took effort to get them out because there's rights there. The squatters have rights. But the homeless people, they find out where the homes are vacant, and they move in. And then it's hard to move them out.
So, as long as you're going to chair, this may be a time to take a brief break and hear some public comments. That's on our agenda, that we would hear some public comment for a few minutes and then come back to you to look at kind of what I think Dennis was bringing up is what can we do in the short term then to continue working, and are there one of these or two of these that the group as a whole would like to work together on and collaborate in the short term. So,
Do public comment. What happened?
public comment.
Take it out to the public, any public comments on that issue discussed?
She's back. But she's back with some good ideas. At least I think they're good ideas. You guys all talked about solutions, and I came to you with really ugly things this morning, but I also have 7 solutions that I think are good ideas. First and foremost, where I live along Raymond Road is the Fresno River, a stone's throw from my house, and many other people who actually share a property line. The trees need to go. The trees provide refuge and protection for people who are breaking the law. The EPA or whoever needs to get out there and look at the garbage heap that it's become. There was one time in the 18 years that I've lived there that all of those trees were burned down, and that was the best it ever had been because there was no place for anybody to hide. This will also prevent the fires. It's always on fire. Just this last summer, there were countless fires that endangered the homes and businesses along the riverside. Once the trees are gone, we need to keep them gone. They grow fast. I know I get them all over my yard all the time, and every year we're digging up 200 trees out of our yard. So they need to stay gone. Item number 2 is awareness. The people of Madera are generous. The people of Chowchilla, I'm sure, are generous too. And I commend them for that. But what the people don't realize is that they are actually enabling the behavior that is occurring along the riverside. I would like to see the city and the county both promote state programs that our tax dollars already pay for, as well as private organizations that they can help donate to, that will help feed, shelter, and get these people off the streets for good. I did a quick Google search myself, and I found 11 state-sponsored programs, and I'm sure that there's more. Encourage them to volunteer. The biggest reason people flip dollar bills out of their car windows to panhandlers is because they feel guilty. Tell them that what they're doing is actually keeping them on the streets longer. Tell them that what they're actually doing is keeping the drug dealers in my neighborhood in business. Promote to the people to give their hard-earned money to places that actually help rather than enable. Places like the Madera Rescue Mission, United Way, the Poverello House, Salvation Army, Love Inc. There's all kinds of organizations. Number 3, a jobs program. Make deals with local farms and businesses to get people working, not just for the city and the county. Anybody can pick grapes, and anybody can sweep almonds. We have so many opportunities with just the farms that nobody should be jobless. A cab program, number 4. Design contracts with local cab companies to start a free ride voucher program. Excuse number 1 that I've heard that people use is they don't have a ride. Make these vouchers available to people to give to the cab driver, and they will only go to particular locations. Number 5 is jurisdiction. We need one jurisdiction for the entire river. One of the main problems that has been consistent with this issue is that the homeless population has figured out that when the city police are called, all they have to do is cross the county line. And when the sheriff has been called, they cross over into the city. Make it one or the other. This back and forth business is absurd, and it only hurts the people who live there. Number 6, stricter laws and sentences. There needs to be a no camping ordinance on the books. And I know that code enforcement has been involved with the sheriff's department. I've seen them out there. But these people are relentless in coming back, and I would encourage all of you to talk to the sheriff's department and the police department about what they recommend, because they know what laws are on the books already. And then number 7, we need substations. I found out by going to Coffee with a Cop that our neighborhood has a special investigations unit. Give them a substation so that they can be closer to the crime rather than make us wait half an hour for them to get to our location. The police department was smart in choosing a location for their office. They put themselves right in the middle of where the worst offenses are taking place. I think it's time for this special investigations unit to look at doing the same thing. I've done my part as a citizen by contacting my immediate neighbors and starting a neighborhood watch, something I was encouraged to do, and I've started doing that. And I'm encouraged by this meeting. I have been encouraged by the sheriff's department by sitting down with them and talking with them. And we're going to talk more. But I want you guys to look at that bottle now, and it's sat for a while, and it's divided again. And I would encourage, let's not let that happen. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if I may for just a minute, please.
Go ahead.
Ms. Molina, I want to thank you for your comments. You've also emailed me personally, so my assumption is you've emailed other members of this board. And
yes.
You know, sometimes it's easy to recognize an issue, but it's your involvement and your volunteerism and you reaching out that going that extra mile really shows that you care and you're passionate about our community. And so everyone up here is accessible and available. Hopefully I can speak for them and when I say that. And so by you having these ideas and wanting to work with us is exactly what we're here as a governing body. And so shame on us if we need somebody to come tell us that. But we appreciate your input and we appreciate you reaching out and wanting to work together. Neighborhood Watch, getting together with your neighborhood and police your own area is huge. As you're either realize that now or you're going to realize that. So I just wanted to thank you for reaching out to me personally and for your comments and being here.
Thank you.
Anthony.
Let me just state my address. Okay, Anthony Duhon, 1500 West 5th Street. Yeah, resident of Madera. Yeah, so also I do work for the county, but I am really excited. This is really encouraging to see about this homelessness issue, but I do want to mention that there are a lot of things that are actually going on. It's not that, there are groups that are just ignoring this issue, but also the same thing is, in 2 weeks I've gone to about 4 different homeless task groups, issues where, because Will Oliver and Mr. Rigby are doing a great job with this housing homeless with this Pomona Ranch issue, but also I was with Mr. Rogers and Mr. Revere about another issue, but that, there's so many different things that are going on, and also code enforcement, I think they've already hauled 15,000 pounds worth of trash in the river. So people are making efforts, but, I guess when I say, there can be 5 different horses running in different directions, it's still making something, but if you're all working together to be able to actually push it at one thing, it's going to be very important, it's going to be effective. So I do have a vision, I hope that we can see at some point almost like a countywide homelessness task force that
We have, I have all the stakeholders. We have Captain C here. We have behavioral health. We have all this. We have so many. We have, I guess, the cities and the counties to make sure that we are working together. Because during those meetings, we said, workforce has this money for this, where behavioral health has this money for this. If we're all in one room together, I'm pretty sure the collective whole will maybe at least have, maybe one good idea. So I'm really excited. So I'm hoping that I can have some direction sooner than later, that we could actually start working and actually getting people together for that. I know it's a lot. I don't want to see another group, another meeting that people have to go to, but if we could find, maybe have one effective meeting we could do monthly, I think that'd be a lot better for us than actually just doing these various things, which everyone's doing a great job, and I appreciate that, but I want people to see us be more effective and be able to do it as a collective whole. Thank you.
We have Sheena right house here too,
Yes.
Anthony, and also, I think that collective in our group, correct me if I'm wrong, we all kind of came to the conclusion that we don't want to talk this issue to death. We want to get boots on the ground. We want to do something about it. And coming together with all the entities is going to be very important in doing that.
Yeah, honestly, homelessness issue is not an easy fix. It's a holistic approach we need to really go towards. So yes, having to just figure out, there's housing. Housing is an issue, but also an issue of, drugs or, mental health problems, things like that. So this is not an easy thing. It's not going to happen. It's not going to be done this year, but I am really, really, really encouraged and really empowered today to feel like that we're taking those steps, we're taking huge leaps in the right direction. I'm very excited. Thank you.
Yeah, we talked about tiny houses too.
Yes.
I think it's important that it stay a task force and not a meeting force. Everybody that gets together, every meeting is just a social gathering unless there is an actual item and directive that you can go forward and actually do. This is not an issue that has just popped up. This has been around for years and years and years. And I think this year has been more highlighted, I think partially because we actually had a good wet year and the Fresno River filled up with water. And usually a lot of the homeless aren't on the riverbanks, they're on the riverbed. And now they moved to the banks, it's easier for them to then get out into the streets and then have more of that interface with the communities. And I think that's where we've seen such a big difference. This is the largest problem we've had with it in my 8 years of public life, in terms of people actually being upset about it, and it's because of that public interaction. That it has not, but we shouldn't let any, don't let any good crisis go unused. So I think now we bring it together. I think we can, but it has to be a task force, not a meeting force.
Let me answer one of her. She had a list number 5, the one ticked here, the river, trees, and brush.
Oh, yes.
Okay, you know what? We tried that, and Fish and Game didn't allow us to do that because it would hurt the fish.
There's no fish.
That's what we said.
Tell Fish and Game to come knock on my door.
That should be the name of the task force. There's no fish.
Since I'm the only one with a hat here, I'll take it off to all of you. My name is Steve Elkins, and I live out in the Madera Lakes Ranchos. And I'm here at the behest of reporter extraordinaire DJ Becker from our local paper. I drive for a local freight company, and I work into the early morning. And when I come home at night, I see this another world that you guys don't see when you're sleeping. And we call them the zombies or whatever. And it's the night people that come out and are scavenging in Madera, downtown Madera, and up there on Raymond Road. I live, off of 28 where Raymond turns into 28 and a half. But I just got frustrated coming home every night, nearly hitting these people that are just walking in the street, driving into town, seeing all the trash. It's a civic issue it's a civic pride issue. And when I drive across that bridge there, going to work on Cleveland and Raymond, and I look both ways and I see it just filled with trash. When I drive up north to Ripon, and I'm going across the river, and I look either side of that bridge, and it's just full of trash. And I just wonder what people think when they're driving through our area, what they think of Madera County, Madera proper, and it's just something that really shouldn't be. It really shouldn't be. Now, since DJ wrote that wonderful article, I've seen the county, the city, whoever, they've really done a wonderful job of getting those folks out, cleaning it up. This young lady just stole my thunder because as I was driving in the other day, I said, the way to get rid of that is cut down those trees. So thank you for bringing that up. But it's just that, trash, Lady Bird Johnson back in the, years and years ago started cleaning up our highways and bring civic pride to all of the United States. And here in Madera County, especially the Central Valley, I just don't see that happening. I drive into Fresno going down south, picking my freight, and the underpasses are just disgusting with trash. And yet it just sits there and piles up and piles up and piles up. And another thing that just tears me up is the folks that live in the city, when they're going out to the country where I live, 6 miles out of Madera proper, they use our country roads as their repository for their trash. Honey, would you take out the trash today? Okay, we'll do. Put it in the car, truck, whatever. And then they deposit on my roadway because they don't want to pay for trash pickup. Now, the county, city, whoever, needs to work with the local trash haulers. And you're worried about people of low income, give them a special rate. But everybody that lives in a home, whether it be a rental or one that they own themselves, an apartment, they need to pay for trash pickup. Because I have chased people all the way to the dump because they were going to dump in the orchards. I chased them back into town, got their license plate, where the sheriff kindly went to their residence. And the next day when I came back, that trash was gone. So I'm tired of chasing people in and out of town because I know exactly what they're doing. Because they slow down, and they're looking for that road to pull off and dump their couch or whatever. So this is something that needs to stop. I think what would be a good idea is if the city, county, especially Madera, the city itself, to educate the public, make it bilingual, put out a flyer in the mail, and tell people that they can dump their oil at any of the automotive places. Don't dump it out there. I've seen gallons at a time set us along the side of the road. The other thing, again, thinking about the trash, because I know that Madera every once in a while has a bulk thing where people can put it on the street, and it's going to get picked up. There's no need for it to be dumped out in the country where I live. And there just has to be a greater awareness of it. They've done a wonderful job of getting these people out. Somebody had just moved in back there in the river on the Ranger Road. I was watching them set their little camp up again. So we need to be vigilant. You need to have code enforcement out there regularly, a couple times a week, and see that these guys are constantly on their case so they don't come back. And I just think that's something that really needs to be done. You got to be vigilant. Everybody's got to take pride in where they live. There's wonderful parts of Madera that, see that we're in this beautiful golf course with green lawns and stuff. As you go that way, it's not so pretty. We can't ignore that area that's not so pretty. But we got to get people down now that the water's low. We need to get people out there to pick up that trash. It's a blight. And we have that all over the city and all over the county. So folks, all I'm asking for is open your eyes. Don't just go to the nice parts of the city and the county. Take drives out into the country and see what's going on there. But while I have the counties here, I live north of Avenue 21 on Road 28 and a half. And a couple years back, I heard the county had extra money, so they decided to do all the streets behind me, which were basically the asphalt was crumbling, but only a fifth maybe of the lots are actually been built up. So there's really no need to do that. Yet the main hub, my street, 28 and a half, all they do is come out and they patch the holes, and then the big trucks come by and they throw it all over. I've had to realign my wife's truck twice this year because she can't seem to miss those potholes. So please, who's ever on the road department here?
Right behind you.
Huh? Please, north of Avenue 21, please. Hey, so
all the next speakers coming up. You know, we tried mandatory trash collection and then we got sued on it, so that was a problem. Anyway, I couldn't agree with you more. We do need mandatory trash collection throughout the county. Another thing is that when you look at roads and the development of roads and the repair of those roads, remember that in Madera County there are a large number of maintenance districts. So when you're seeing road repair in one spot that you might not think that's the spot that it needs to be done, remember that sometimes dollars can't be spent in certain areas. It's just the way we are. We're dependent on those rules from the state. So just take that into consideration. I'm not saying we always do everything right, but sometimes I'll call them on and say, hey, why are we paving that? And they'll say, we got some free stuff and this is the only place we can put it. Or that's a maintenance district, they're paying for that. Or the private citizens stepped up and put money. We had something like that in District 2 on Avenue 14 where farmers paid for it. Anyway, that's the bottom line.
And I just want to remind the board, we only have 25 minutes left, so I want to be sure that we use that time wisely to plan our next steps, and I know there are members of the public who want to speak, so if we can
I'll be quick.
conscious of that.
I'll be quick.
Wait a minute, let her speak.
I'm kidding.
Good morning, my name is Elizabeth Weiser, and I'm with the Community Action Partnership of Madera County. Our Executive Director, Manny Mendes, is not able to be here today, so she asked us to come and represent her. I do work with the homeless population, and so I understand all the comments that are being shared. I want to just commend code enforcement, the city's code enforcement and the county's code enforcement, because they are out there. And we've made a commitment to the city. The city has honored us with CDBG funds every year, and we've made a commitment to connect with code enforcement and to go out there. They send us the pictures every single week. We go out there, we send a team out there every week to make contact with the homeless. And there isn't one staff person that we've sent down there that was not deeply touched by what they saw. And the best way I can describe our riverbanks is like this. There's a parable of a young man who took all of his wealth and squandered it, spent it foolishly, till he had nothing left and was tired and broke and hungry, and there was nothing for him to eat, so he was eating with the pigs. Until one day he came to himself and said, what am I doing? My dad's house is better than this. He'll feed me. I should go home. And I am a firm believer that there is no one living in that riverbed who is not too far gone and too far down to be reached. And with that mentality, that's why I go out there. That's why our staff goes out there. And it has been the honor of my life, the joy of my life, to see those ones who come to themselves and decide, cannot do this anymore. And I oversee a shelter called the Shoot on My Place, and it's for chronically homeless women with disabilities. I have to compete for that funding every single year. I compete first with all the agencies in Fresno. There's 30-something agencies. Last year, we were ranked #1. This year, I just competed again, and then we compete with every HUD-funded agency in the nation. And this year, I missed the top spot by 0.33%. And the reason why we rank so high is because we are in Madera. And we have the backing of so many people. We're small, and we can one-on-one. We have behavioral health. We have workforce who does house calls. They come because they know our women are so mentally ill that they will come to us and lead them through the orientation. We have Love Inc. that buys them glasses. We have just the support blows me away, and that is why we're a success there. And I just want to very quickly share, last year, the women that we serve met every single one of our HUD goals. Every single one. When they get there, it's like they just blow me away in what they can accomplish. I don't look at where they are. I look at where they can be. And 96% of our women either left to permanent housing or stayed in permanent housing. We served 24, so we lost 1. And I double-checked this. I said, okay, are you sure they didn't go back out? Because they do end up in the riverbed. But we're ranked, they're tracked for 2 years. If they end up back in the riverbed in 2 years, we lose points. And we're going to do everything we can do to teach them how to live as human beings in society. Let's see, 67% increase their income. Is my 3 minutes up? Something just 67% increase or maintain their income. 96% attended the life skills classes. We teach them budget development. They turn in a budget every single month so that they don't know how to manage money. And so we teach them that so that when they move out, they know, hey, I better pay my rent first or I'm going to be back out in the riverbed.
Thank you very much for the
Okay, it's up. Anyway, I just, there are solutions that are working. That's just what I want to say.
Mr. Chairman, I like that. On that point, Chairman Rodriguez, I think I have a call to action or maybe follow-up item to add to that list. Thank you, Elizabeth, for sharing those remarks. She has truly been a great partner working alongside our police department, alongside our code enforcement department, going down to the riverbanks and engaging in a dialogue with the folks who find themselves homeless and reaching out to the folks that are threshold ready and willing to take a step forward. One of the things that Elizabeth also coordinates and does with her staff, and Paul's back there too, and I've been able to participate on this, is the point-in-time counts. These are annual surveys that are done by volunteers led by service agencies such as CAPMC, where over 2 or 3 days you go out, you survey the number of people who are living without shelter in your community. But what that does, most importantly, is one, it allows for good data and information that goes into that point system, which allows communities like Madera to go after grant money like emergency services grant. But number two, it allows you to realize and see what the true problem is at hand. You'll learn that there's a confluence of factors that surround homelessness. So one of my action items might be that there's a commitment between the 2 cities and the county to ensure that we have ample volunteers to participate in the next point-in-time count. And then wherever possible, that we try to do that locally more than just once a year to have a better sampling as to the homeless population. So I just wanted to add those 2 cents and maybe we could throw it on the chart for kind of follow-up items. So thank you.
Great point.
I'm very glad I have the opportunity to go after her. I would like, and after Oliver, so how many of you have ever struggled to make ends meet? Or your family members? Or your friends or neighbors? Or your constituents? There's some comments that were being made that certain things, we see our Fresno, it pretty much made it a crime to be homeless, to be low income, to be unable to make ends meet. Madera has more values in that. Our community, for example, Madera Votes, we have people from Madera Ranchos, from Chowchilla, from the city of Madera, Oakhurst, Horseshoe, in between. On our own free time, we are trying to get the community engaged. I encourage everyone that instead of holding some type of wedge or just treating the homelessness as like something that we want to get rid of, if we can communicate with them, we can engage with them, especially when there's services like these in Madera, because it's very difficult to be in those shoes. I have not been in those shoes, but none of us want to be in those shoes. And if we are ever in those shoes, I hope that somebody reaches out to us instead of making it illegal to be sleeping in the streets. Whatever hardships they have, we need to work with people and get them engaged in our community so that together as a community we're able to thrive. For example, Madera Votes, I'm pretty sure a lot of our individual members would not mind being part of that conversation. There's a lot of people that you'll be surprised, all it takes is having that conversation. We've reached out to so many people about, hey, this issue's going on here locally, let's get involved, let's make sure that we're able to shape our community. You'll be surprised, these are not half of our members. We have a lot of people who really care about our community. So I think it's perfect timing, especially after what happened in Fresno, that here in Madera, we take care of our people. We don't criminalize them. And so I encourage you all to continue this conversation and open it to the public whenever it is that they are available. And I will do my best to make sure that I reach out to a lot of people, make sure that we are all committed to protecting our community, not putting them aside and making them look like a bad person. Because tomorrow it could be someone that you know. Thank you.
Good morning. Myra Torres, and I do reside in Madera County. I'm here on behalf of Madera Association of Realtors, and which is the Madera County Association of Realtors, pretty soon to be our formal name. And I'd like to speak to you a little bit about a need for housing. We need to build more homes, and not just the low-income homes. We need to be able to get homes for a workforce. We need to be able to build in Madera County, Chowchilla, Fairmead, Madera, up to the mountains, Yosemite, and be able to build homes that people would choose. They would choose Madera over any other place, Madera County, so that we will be able to employ the people that work there. The people that are employed in our city and counties, that they choose to live in Madera. One of the things that we need to do is to entice the developers, the builders, and a good way to start that is to really entice them by maybe reducing fees, making it a quicker process to be able to get more higher-end homes, the medium homes, and also the lower square footage homes, which will accommodate our retirees, people that want to downsize, because we have the people that want to move up, but also we need the people for our consumers in our community that wants to downsize in their home. We've been working together with our local governments in many facets as an association of realtors to bring us together to better our community in many, many ways. With the schools, with the city, with the county. Now, we want to be that resource to be able to say, and when we go out to conferences throughout the state, bring those developers to Madera, that we can duplicate what happened on Avenue 12 and 41, to be able to entice that to happen within close to the city of Madera, where we can entice that to happen within the city of Chowchilla. We want to be able to build a better Madera together. And we know that we just talked about some of the problems that we have, and we're coming together with a lot of solutions, a lot of great ideas, and follow through is what we need to do. We are here as Association Realtors to be that in the grassroots association and realtors, because we touch everybody. We're out there every day speaking to the homeowners, to the people that want to move into town, and to be able to have Madera County be their choice. Reach out to us, invite us, and we will be here. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Good morning. Morning. So, for those of you who may not know me, my name is Paul Yankee. I'm an analyst at the Department of Public Health. I served for about 5 years at the Department of Social Services, where I was involved with child welfare, child protective services, and trafficking. For about 5 or 6 years, I have participated in the Homeless Point Time Count, and it's been truly a privilege to go out and be like the global photographer and, person that documents what goes on. So, I just want to read you a quote. The community I serve has seen fit to step up and tackle some of the most difficult issues that we've faced for generations in America, and we're making a big difference. We're really shining as a city that's compassionate. We have some of the best programs that we have some programs that are the best in the nation for addressing homelessness. Richard Berry, Mayor of Albuquerque. So what I offer today is just a recommendation. About 2 years ago, during the point in time count, I saw a YouTube video that was shared with me about the wonderful program that Mayor Berry is doing in Albuquerque. Some of the great opportunities that he did it by driving down the road and seeing a panhandle. And he said, okay, as opposed to giving a punitive action, I'm going to facilitate, I'm going to assist. He said, I need to go back to my staff. Where can we get funding? Basically, the ability to assist through providing a van, going out, finding people on the street that appear to be homeless, referring them to services, but more importantly, putting tools in their hands and putting them to work for the day, paying cash for hard days later. And so, just making it short, you know, I always kind of believe in support rather than punitive action. And I would just, like I said, recommend, as I know that I brought it to my former director, Maddie and Elizabeth, we talked about it. I thought it was a remarkable video. And so I don't know, I would try and contact Albuquerque and find out where they're getting their funding from, what success rates they have. And more importantly, is it something that would be able to Madera County?
Let me encourage you in that we are doing that, and David Revere is already part of our task force is doing it.
Thank you very much.
I think it's a great idea.
If I could just expand on that real quick, Paul, actually at an MCTC meeting, I was speaking with Supervisor Rogers, and he had mentioned that, and through my city clerk's office, Sonia, we reached out to the mayor's office in Albuquerque. He's actually sent us some information. We spoke to his director on how to implement and how we get these going. But again, you have the city of Madera and the county of Madera in the same direction, but yet so far apart. So again, another reason why we need to continue that collaboration to get this done. Great point. Thanks for bringing that to us. I'm sorry.
My name is Mary Velasquez, and it's not about homelessness.
Please pull the mic down. There you go.
Oh, much better. What I want to say is since Madera is growing and they're putting a new school, well, the new school in by 28 and 14 and a half, we have a little stop sign and that's it. It's grown, it's going to get busy there. We need a stop light. I just wanted to bring that to your attention. Thank you.
And that's by the Virginia Roads?
Excuse me?
By the Virginia Roads elementary?
Yes.
When the county, when we develop across the street from there, we will be putting in a stoplight there.
Oh, great. Thank you.
So, your task in the few minutes we have left is to identify where might there be an opportunity for shared collaboration that is something we could start working on now. So something that, or some things, but probably one or two things that would give this group a reason to work together, to come back together again, to Dennis's point, and to give some direction to your collective staffs. If this is something that we as councils, the two cities and the Board of Supervisors would like to work on together.
Bill, I would like to suggest that we work on a localized dispatch. That's something that we can do now with the City of Madera, County of Madera, and the City of Chowchilla.
How do others feel?
Yeah, I think that's an important one. Most people don't realize that our ambulance dispatch is in jeopardy right now. They're actually dispatched out of Fresno, and it's becoming so costly that they can't afford to stay in business. We have 2 ambulance services, and they're working with the Sheriff's Department right now on a possible system of dispatch. I think that's something we can all do together. I think it's a great idea.
Obviously, we've discussed homelessness. I mean, I think it's a general topic when you say homelessness, but it's more of the nuts and bolts of what we're going to do about it. But I really like the task force idea, how we come together as 3 entities, how we can combine forces, whether it be certain resources, employees, or public safety issue. And also, there's possibly room for grants and things of that nature. So again, putting our heads together and how we can work as an entire county on homelessness, I think is something we can start working on.
And it's a good example of what we were talking about before, because it's not only is it not something that the county and or the cities are going to be able to do them by themselves, but you need, as you heard from some of the members of the public, the community-based organizations, the community itself, trying to bring together and into one effort rather than 4 or 5
absolutely
well-meaning efforts, but they're not coordinated.
But there's so many departments that are affected, and it's not just about jobs, it can be about addiction, it could be a number of different reasons. Our health department, our social services department, additional funding. So there's just so many different groups and people that are affected, including our residents.
Right.
So it's not going to be one swoop to get it fixed, it's going to be another.
So this group can be the catalyst, if you will, for that task force and have this become the place that task force reports to in some period of time where progress is being made.
Max and I were talking at the beginning of the day, and one of the things that I brought up was, and speaking to Mr. Hawley's point, this is the first time in 20 years he's aware of us all getting together like this. Honestly, what we need to do, and an easy way to do it, is for our mayors and a council member from each city, whoever the chairman of the board is and a board member, and then our staff members, our city managers, our county managers, 9, 10 people in a room. We don't have a forum, so we don't have a Brown Act issue. Getting together at least on minimum quarterly to start working on this and coordinating. If you don't have someone at the top coordinating, it's not going to get done. And dealing with the issue of dispatching, making sure that all of our efforts on the homeless issues, wherever they are in the county, are all heading in the same direction. All of these issues, someone's going to have to steer it, and that's a very, very easy way to do that without creating a lot of problems. And that group can come back and report to their individual work. And it's just an idea. But my fear is that this is a wonderful day, and we're going to lose this.
How do we keep that momentum going?
Yes. I wanted to just follow up on Mayor Medellin's point. So I might have a date to propose. On October 25th, our city team, we meet monthly what we call our vision meetings. We have a Vision 2025 plan that was developed by the community, so our staff meets to discuss how we're carrying out those goals. And speaking with Chief Steve Frazier last week, on the 25th, the primary subject of that meeting is going to be surrounding homeless coordination of services. We talked to our PD about ways that when they're intersecting with that population, how they can collect data, make sure that it's resourceful to service agencies like CAPMC. So perhaps we can put out the invitation to some of our service agency partners who want to take part on October 25th. We can follow up with some additional detail as to location and time.
So, Brett and then Andrew.
Yeah, I think that we also need to know as because ultimately what we are is a decision-making body of our jurisdiction, and we can only make decisions based on actual goals that we have set. So we have to understand, like, what is a success in this. If we can sit up here, obviously it's an issue, but if we're going to say we're going to end up homelessness, it's too nebulous. We have to have some specific guidelines as to what is success. How do we define success as a collective group, and how do we get to that point? And without it, it will literally be a confetti trail, and the meetings will get together and they'll fizzle out because we're not attacking just one specific.
And there are some models around the state like that, where task forces and some variety of how you suggested have actually figured out specific strategies and an order of those strategies. And so it's not some big global unreachable thing like end homelessness, but for example, San Mateo said its first goal to end homelessness for vets.
Yeah, right.
And so then and they're getting very close to that, and now they're working on their next goal, what they're going to do. And of course, that's a different county than here. But Mayor, and then Wasim.
Thank you very much. Actually, I agree with what Supervisor Frazier had said, but to add to that, we're making decisions about our community and our constituency. They need to be at the table, and there's no better way than to hold elected officials accountable than to bring in the public and have them sit at the table. They serve the whole. That's it.
I just want to see, like, as we are in this room, like cities and counties, I also like to see maybe we can bring in the staff from the EDC, MCTC, and NAFTA staff as well, because all the policies that we make, we want to make sure they are also on board as well. They're bringing it together and come up with the same task. Yeah.
Jose, and then Charles, and then
I just wanted to add that I think the list of opportunities that were listed there today were great opportunities. I just don't want us to miss out on some very important ones. If I could, I'd like to see all of them worked on with our intergovernmental agency. I think you said 20 years from now, well, if we don't have economic development in our communities, then you can rest assured that we can have possibly twice the problem that we have today with homelessness. Mm-hmm. So we really have to focus on those areas. For me, I can't stress out enough how economic development is such a big theme for Madera County. And now that we have an opportunity, I didn't make this earlier, I didn't touch on this earlier, but the high-speed rail, that's the only physical evidence that we have right now. Construction is being built on it right now. We can see it in Fresno, we can see it in Madera. We definitely have to join together, work together to see how we can mitigate some of that money and possibly infrastructure that could help us. You know, we talked about career education. A lot of these companies that are coming to town, especially manufacturing companies, are looking for education, workforce, educated workforce. You know, bringing our schools into the table. It's another important piece that we don't consider that education is huge. When companies look to Madera, or look to Madera, they look at the workforce, education, career technical, and this is another conversation that we have, and hopefully we can add our schools in our next conversation that we have, because I think it's a very important piece of information that we left out there.
Yeah, thank you. And Bill, I'm sorry, I feel like we're kind of just jumping all over the place, but I wanted to just kind of add my 2 cents to the homeless thing that was brought up. I agree with Supervisor Frazier. I don't want us to get into a conversation where the confetti ideas are floating around. If I might, kind of just piggyback off of Councilman Oliver's idea of not just having October 25th as an open invitation to some of those agencies. I think that's a great idea, Councilman. I think that ultimately one of the first goals of this task force perhaps should be a summit. Mr. Mayor, do you agree that maybe that could be a great forum as to where we could bring the public in on it, where if we summit this issue, maybe it's something that could happen throughout the day, and agencies that do play a vital role in service deliveries to our homeless or transient population. I think that that's something that could be easily attained by that task force within the next 12 months. The more information we get out there, the more likely we are to get public buy-in. I mean, it's easy for us to pick out where the homeless are, where they're living, what they're doing. Now what? Right. And then now what? And more importantly, are you willing to go down and help clean up the trash, or do you want the government officials to just make this decision, find this magic chemical, and make it all go away? I think I agree with the statement made by one of the public speakers. If we as a community can now own this issue, I think all of us would agree we're not going to solve it per se, but if we could own it and say that this is something that we're willing to cooperate with, maybe if we have more information as to what I can do as Joe Public to partner with some of these agencies, we might be able to see or take a little niche out of what is not being done as of now. So that would be my suggestion.
Yeah. Bill, this is, I think it's so important that we bring it up. You know, Kemper's Dam is going to be built. It's going to be built. And if you study history, when Bryan was built, most of the water went south, if not almost all of it. They have a huge canal that goes to Herman Valley, a little canal that goes to Madera, named Madera Canal. We just have to put pressure on the people that are writing those contracts up to allow more water to stay in this area. It's nonsense. LA did that over the mountain when they stole all that water from going on next to all that kind of stuff. We shouldn't allow that to happen here in Madera County. We should, it's a source of water here, the rivers in Fresno, Madera County. We should pressure the power makers, the payers to play, to allocate more water to our area than they have in the past. We all support, not all, but some of us support Kemper's Dam. But that should be a clause inserted in those contracts. More water should stay in this area.
Amen to that, brother. Good point.
Yeah, I come from Napa County, where Lake Berryessa is the water source in Napa. It all goes to Solano County. None of those stays in Napa. So here's kind of what I'm hearing, and maybe to bring some closure. I mean, there seems to be 4 sort of subject areas that are of interest to the group. One is the centralized dispatch for some elements of public safety. There seems to be a great deal of interest around homelessness. Will talked about the possibility of October 25th. And Charles built on that is say maybe what we ought to have is a summit that we're not only inviting all the public sector to, but to all the the people who are players. And I think in a lot of counties where they've done something like this, the summit helps in defining what the problem is for Madera County and how our issues might differ from others, because then you have a better idea of how to engage not only the cities and the county, but also all your community-based organizations into some, as several of you said, some coordinated effort to address and to Brett's point, where should we start? This is what we think is the biggest chunk of the problem. Let's start here and address that and do it through some kind of summit. And then the other two, one that's come up is how can we work together, regardless how we personally feel about high-speed rail, but to ensure, various people said something about that we get all the benefits that we can, and that we mitigate all the, as best we can, should this thing come to be. And then Max was suggesting one other thing we could speak to one voice to is as progress is Temperance Dam, as progress is made on that, how do we ensure that Madera County is getting, and all its jurisdictions are getting our fair share of water?
Our list isn't very huge from what we've estimated. We keep hitting the same themes. And so all of the above, to me, what we've done here is we've codified some good goals, and we could cooperate on all of these issues and immediately focus on these specifics.
Well, and Dennis made a proposal about how to move this forward by creating a subgroup of this, and I think Dennis's proposal was a mayor and a member of each of the two councils, and then the chair and a member of the board to be sort of the driving force, and then and I'll take your idea and build on it, and then maybe periodically, whether that's once a year, the full group gets together, but that this subgroup is responsible for ensuring that the summit happens, and Dennis, correct me if I'm wrong.
Well, it's even like the water, the Temperance Dam issue. If the county wants the city of Chowchilla to do a declaration in support, well, here's a way to talk about it and go, hey, we need your help on this. We need you to start making phone calls to these folks. And then our people who are elected amongst ourselves, I mean, well, Madera's a little bit, the city's a little different, but in Chowchilla, our mayor is elected by our council or the chairman. They can go talk together, work out some of these details, find out where we have these common ground, and bring it back to the different municipalities, and then move forward as a group. It's just a way to coordinate and make this stuff actually happen. My concern is we're going to talk about these things and then nothing is done.
So what do you think of Dennis's suggestion, Brett?
I think it's good. I think, coming out of this meeting, what an idea that we had was, that we can maybe put up on here, is that this serves as a cooperative agreement that we're going to agree to cooperate with each other, right? Can we put together a document that says, we don't have to agree, but we should always cooperate and work together. It may just be symbolic, but I think it could be very powerful that if our boards all get behind saying, yes, we will work together on all of these items.
Says something.
Well, and Sheriff, maybe you know, Dave, you guys get together on a regular basis as law enforcement representatives of the county, right? Once a month, our staffs are getting together and talking to each other. And the problem is, like I said at the beginning of this, our line staff does a better job working together than we do. And we should be emulating what our line staff has been doing all along, and that is talking to each other. The problem we have is around, obviously, we can't have a formula system. We do all that rigmarole. I'm just looking at a way to actually emulate what they're doing and be able to solve problems quickly and efficiently, like the way they do every day for us. That's what I'm looking for.
Other input?
I think Dennis is right on that. What it comes down to is a lot of times, like law enforcement, they'll bring back something to us from their from their summits together, and they come up with an idea to bring it back to us as policymakers. And we do deal with that as a collective group, and I think there are more parts of our organizations that can do that, as well as us too. I mean, not leaving us out.
Several people up here have used the word awareness. April used the word awareness, and I think, was it Joanna used the word awareness. And so we can't just sit here and talk for talk's sake. We need to get what we're saying out to the public and let them, who said ownership? Was that you, Charles? We need to take ownership. We all need to take ownership. We're not the only stakeholders. They're the stakeholders. So we have to get our stakeholders to take ownership of our cities, our county. Only then we can come together, but we've got to bring them in with us. We've got to move forward together.
Brett made a suggestion of, I think it was Brett what made the suggestion of some kind of
good or not.
it was a wonderful suggestion.
Oh, it was me.
Yeah.
Not David.
But it was actually Matt, yeah. But he was reflecting all of you in his words, was because maybe this is a path forward that kind of picking up on what Mary was just talking about, is to develop a cooperative agreement that says we want to work together on these 4 issues. And as part of that agreement, and I'm kind of putting words in your mouth to see if there's some consensus here. As part of that agreement, we want to create some kind of steering committees similar to what Dennis suggested. And maybe we can ask staff, the three managers, to draft something that then can be brought, because we're not going to vote here, that can be brought to each of your councils and the board for approval, because that, I was thinking, that builds that awareness too, and it provides additional forum for the public to make comments. And then for each of you to formally agree to that, to say these are the things we want to work together on, and staff within the cities and counties that are affected by this can start developing some of this, like the idea that Charles suggested on a homelessness summit as a way to sort of kick that off. But all of this sort of being done on the auspices of this collaboration of the 2 cities and the county. What does something like that sound like to you?
Yeah, I would say we need to uncomplicate it by not making it a legal binding MOU, but rather more of a declaration.
Exactly, and that's what I was hearing. This is not a, it's saying we want to work together. Right. That's all it's saying.
I think it's a great idea.
I think it's a great idea.
Of course it's right.
But just to make sure that it happens and keeps moving forward, I think the next part of that, if everyone thought that it was a good idea, is to then put a time frame to it by which we could have it back to our boards, so that we keep on a clock and we don't lose any of this momentum.
So I heard from the board members. How about council members? How do you friendly men? That was it.
I think it's a good idea to move forward, and in addition to just the elected bodies, which change over time, I'd also implore for our department heads, our managers, and each respective agency to sign on to that document as well before we take action.
So it's really a community thing.
Right.
Well, and I think the best way to do it, because you are dealing with 3 separate independent sovereign municipalities. And the easiest thing is for us to simply direct our own staffs to get together, start hammering out the details amongst themselves, bring it to us. We can have public hearing and public comment on it within our own jurisdictions and make a formal decision that way. I think that's the simplest and easiest way to move forward.
30 days?
I don't know, staff, how busy
They're working on it right now.
We got all 3 of them today.
Bill, we're getting hungry.
So let's turn to our administrators. What kind of time frame would you like to, that was one of the questions of how soon could this come back to the council's board?
I think 60 gives us a better chance to have a quality document.
60 days?
Nicholas, I see Eric's draft right now. It says, do as I say, not as I do.
I mean, given this is something we've never done before, I think 60 days is more the better.
Yeah, it's the measure twice, cut once.
Right.
Somebody told me that like 3 times this week.
Yeah, that's a contractor's policy, man.
Yeah.
You know, during the course of 30 days, our councils only meet twice. We got to meet through our city attorney. And that takes a while. And so...
so by Thanksgiving?
Which year? Sorry, guys. But you know, I got to tell you that staff is already, and they already have bridges to our other entities. I mean, I know my public works director has reached out to Madera's public works director and said, you know, when you're not using your street sweeper, we use the street sweeper. We have a capital asset that whose economic costs will be spread over, you know, more than one entity, bringing their costs down. So there's that dialogue already going on, so I think we've got good bridges to work.
There's a good foundation to build on, to work on some of these bigger issues. So it sounds like, does that work for everybody, that this will come back to your council or board in the next 60 days? And assuming approval, that would allow that group then to meet shortly thereafter. In the meantime, there's this opportunity that Will mentioned coming up on October 25th to start moving on something.
There's that, and they'll speak to, especially with their police department, they're wrapping their head around how they could be of additional resource since their officers are out in the fields. I want to pivot back to that point in time count and seeing our three agencies commit to that effort and commit volunteer time or promote it at least. I've been out with Elizabeth and Gabby and Paul, and they put a lot of hours into it, but we're always shorthanded on volunteers. So even for electeds, I think it offered great perspective to see the complicated issues at hand, but I think it would be a great statement moving forward. It's tangible, it's low-hanging fruit, so maybe we can coordinate some follow-up as to how we can address it.
Count me in. Our task force said the same thing about that count. It's really important. Count me in.
Okay, great, thank you, Will. We're at the end of our time. Wonderful conversation, but I'd like to just go this way. One word that describes how you're feeling about this morning and the outcomes of the morning. One word. One word. That was two. You don't know Dawn.
Prayerful.
Oh, thank you.
Excited.
Proud.
Motivated.
Encouraged. Success.
Great.
Eye-opening.
Excellent.
Optimistic.
Inspiring.
Hopeful.
Give yourself a hand.
On behalf of the members of the Board of Supervisors, we would like to invite everyone to stick around to have some lunch on them. And I think this is a wonderful first step. Our Intergovernmental Coalition group was charged with putting together an idea for opening up dialogue between the three agencies. We know there's lots more to do, but when we have interaction with the people we serve, I think you've had wonderful dialogue this morning, great input, and a lot of doors have been opened. And now we need to walk through them and continue this journey together. But thank you all for being here. Please, again, be our guests for lunch and make the culmination of the morning a complete success. We do have a few people who have signed up to continue the bonding process in 9 holes of golf following. Again, being paid for by the individual, not by the But that starts at 1:30. If you're interested in who will be playing with whom, I'll be glad to give you that information. But thanks again to everyone and to our entire community for making this a success.
We hereby stand adjourned.